Mic check. Thank you.
I think we're ready.
Members of the board, are you ready?
Yes.
Good evening. We will now call to order the regular city council meeting for March 4th, 2020. The time is now 11 minutes after 6. Let the record reflect that the chairperson will be attending via telephone and the vice chairperson is running late. As a result of that, members of the board, the city clerk calls the meeting to order, and those that are present will have to elect a chair amongst those present to run the meeting. So if it is the desire of those sitting at this particular time, I can go ahead and do the roll call, and we can do the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, and then move forward with you all selecting a chair. Or if you want to select a chair prior to doing that, it's totally up to you.
Ms. Anthony, we'd like to select a chair. We'll have Councilwoman Lanier chair the meeting.
I formally open the floor for the selection of a chair. We have Ms. Lanier selected. Is there anybody else? Okay, I now close the floor for nomination of chairperson. Chairperson Lanier, you may proceed.
Well, I call a meeting to order, and we can have the roll call.
Mayor Ronnie Felder.
Here.
Chairperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Present.
Did she say?
She said present,
Okay.
yes.
Councilperson Trodrick McCoy.
Here.
Councilperson Shirley Lanier.
Here.
Councilperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
City Clerk Claudia Anthony is present. City Attorney Don Wynn.
Here.
You may proceed.
We will have we will have the invocation given by Councilman Lawson at this time.
Madam Chair. Before we proceed, I need to advise that Councilperson Miller Anderson is out and attending the meeting telephonically due to illness.
So noted. We have the agenda in front of us. Are there any additions, deletions, or substitutions for the agenda?
Madam Chair, if I may, the item that has been placed on the dais, Resolution 2720, staff is recommending that the board consider this resolution in place of item number 2 that is listed under the consent agenda. It is also staff's recommendation that that item be pulled for presentation.
Council members, any objections to that? Okay, we will add it to the agenda, and we'll also pull it for presentation. Are there any, as you are reviewing this agenda, are there any disclosures by the council, any of the items that are listed on the agenda for this evening?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Chairperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Members of the public shall be given a total of 3 minutes to speak on all items listed on the consent agenda. Any persons who would like to speak on the consent agenda items, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any comment cards for the consent agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. The acceptance of public comment cards for the consent agenda is now closed.
All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussions of these items unless a council person so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Can I get a second?
Pull number 2 and move consent.
Okay.
Second.
You want to pull number 2 altogether?
No, off of consent.
Okay, very good. Item number 2 will be off of consent and then presentation. Can we have public comments for this consent agenda, please, Madam Clerk?
Lloyd Brown.
How you doing? My name is Lloyd Brown, live in Riviera Beach. Now, I'm not sure, but I was just looking at these, like when you give out donations to these different organizations, and I'm really wondering how many individuals that were in these organizations have returned to the city and work here. I mean, are you just giving them out and you're not looking for them to come back? Because to me, honestly, I think it's a bribe. But you can call it what you want to say, donations to these people. But I know all those individuals that, like, I don't know, see, because it says consent agenda. I was trying to do, like, a couple of the ones where you gave, like, the Bethune-Cookman, because I was just thinking how many of those college individuals have returned here, because it seemed like it wouldn't make any sense. You should go ahead and put that money right back into the city if these individuals aren't coming this way. And I really can't see a lot of things when you be giving money to people. And I'm not like Lozman, I'm not trying to say anything. And when you hear me up here talking, it's like I'm not against anybody. I'm not against nobody. I just want the people to know, you know, like as far as the food pantry and all that, we wouldn't need a food pantry if individuals had a job. And you know, since this one on 5 is about the food pantry, you know, I go by the food pantry. And you know, mostly all I see is blacks, because most blacks don't have jobs. I don't see any Spanish. I don't see none of that. So that just lets you know that, I mean, honestly, you're not really, I don't know if, and I mean, this may not be on your agenda, but I was wondering, you know, like this coronavirus, I was wondering if those seats got something that's catching where you catch it and y'all go to screwing up. I mean, is there some kind of problem with the seats to make y'all seem to act like every other council that we had? And for the last 10 or 15 years, with the black people in the council, you know, Black Lives Matter. It's not just when the police shooting people. I mean, you putting all these things and doing all these things, but if you don't ride through the neighborhood, you won't know what's going on. And it's a few of you people up there was in the neighborhood when it was time to be put in here. And now these people that I see, they say, y'all gonna be one-timers, so don't look at me and blame me, because I really don't care who's up here, because I gotta get up in the morning, go to work, do what I gotta do. But I'm gonna tell you, it's a few people up here, you're only gonna be in here for one time, so you know, it's gonna be like somebody gonna be following you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, that concludes public comments.
Okay, if there are no more comments, can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
I believe that was already,
Oh, we did?
we-
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's a roll call.
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Lanier?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Any person who would like to speak on an agenda item, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the item being presented to City Council for discussion. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each regular agenda item. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and speak on an agenda item after the resolution is read or the item is considered. Public comment should be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the city of Riviera Beach. Please be reminded that the city council has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council chambers. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the council chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, and/or the building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Item number 2,
Resolution number 2720, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, establishing an audit committee and the duties and responsibilities required of the city's audit committee, confirming the appointment of individuals to serve as members of the audit committee, and providing an effective date. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Madam Chair and members of the board, if the city council will indulge me to modify the title of the resolution to add Audit Selection Committee. The statute calls out Audit Selection Committee. Other municipalities have referenced in other ways, but in the abundance of caution and in conversations with legal, it is staff's recommendation that it is referred to as the Audit Selection Committee. Some of the components associated with this were discussions that we've had with the city council. The state legislature back in 2019 modified how an audit committee is supposed to function, that they really wanted to give the authority to the residents and the elected body to be more participatory members in the selection of the auditor to conduct the annual audit that actually produce the comprehensive annual financial report. In conversations with the city council, staff has drafted a resolution that we believe encapsulates the intention of the statute, but also gives us, under our home rule authority, an opportunity to expand the roles and responsibilities of the audit committee. The resolution in the packet calls for 3 members, not to exceed 5 members. In the resolution that we have put on the dais, we have left that section blank to allow for the board to provide staff direction as to how many members the city council would like to see appointed to that committee. Also, one of the components that we added into the resolution was for a term of 4 years. The premise behind the term 4 years was to allow for continuity of the board, because if they are seated in that particular committee. However, understanding that another council may have an opportunity to seat other individuals in those roles, we wanted to allow for that section to also be blank, to allow for the board to provide some direction to staff as to how you would like to proceed. One of the other elements that we added into the resolution was to allow for an expansion of duties and responsibilities. We believe that the audit committee allows for additional transparency, to have the internal auditor and staff work with the audit committee to provide its findings, to get information and feedback from the audit committee before audits are concluded. So staff is prepared to answer any questions, to make the appropriate modifications, and ultimately seeking adoption of Resolution 2720.
Madam Clerk, do we have any comment cards for?
No,
this
Madam
item?
Chair.
Members, do you have any questions for the city manager in regards to this?
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
so first I have a question for Mr. Evans, and then I'll come back later. Mr. Evans, you alluded to the statute allows you to expand. Is that the actual verbiage, that they allow you to expand the authority? Because you saying expand the authority seems...
Expand the responsibilities of the audit committee. Their core responsibility is actually the selection of the auditor to conduct the annual audit, but you can utilize this board in other capacities as the legislative body sees fit.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure that we was clear, because I just pulled it up. It says, however, the committee may serve other audit oversight purposes as determined by the entity's governing body, which can be interpreted different than expanding the authority. So I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Madam Chair, that's all I have for a question of the manager. I do have some other comments.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Evans, in the event that we want to expand the committee to 7 members, what steps would we need to take?
Right now, we have it to where it is, we left that section blank. So if the board wishes to extend it to 7 members, it would just be adding in the appropriate language in the third whereas clause to say, the board shall have, let's say, a minimum of 3 and no more than 7 members, and then allow for the elected officials that haven't appointed members on the board as of yet to be able to do so. And that's also incorporating the mayor to be able to appoint an individual to serve on the audit committee as well.
So currently, we have 5 sitting members, 1 councilwoman, and then 4 selected.
Currently, you have you have an appointee by councilwoman or the vice chair. You have an appointee by Councilwoman Lanier. You have an appointee by Councilman McCoy. There is 1 outstanding individual that is seeking appointment and is a recommendation by the chair, and that is Miss Madeline Irving. And then we have, that would be all the members, and then we have our chair, who is Councilwoman Lanier, on the committee.
Okay.
So conceivably, it would allow for your appointee and the mayor's appointee if we were to expand it to 7.
Okay. So colleagues, I'd be looking to, because we're looking to expand the roles of the committee, I definitely want to have my appointee sitting on the board that actually has a good knowledge and vast knowledge of auditing. So I'd love to have them be recognized. And then the first meeting is actually going to be held on Thursday?
We had a pre-meeting to get insight from the board. So our initial kickoff meeting was last week, Monday, and then we have another meeting tomorrow to go over some of the assignments that were communicated to staff to bring some additional information to the board. So we're still working on the scope of service to be able to solidify the RFP, but that meeting is scheduled to be held tomorrow at 5:30, concluding at around 8.
Okay. So colleagues, I'd be looking for any interest of expanding our committee to 7 members.
Madam Chair. Councilman Lawson, so I particularly thought less is more, and I didn't understand why we needed so many members, simply because, before, so let me back up. Before, when we first had this discussion, we were here to resolve the audit selection committee, and the manager thought it was appropriate to expand the role and responsibilities to an audit committee that has oversight. And that kind of concerns me if you have too many members, and I believe and I even went back to the meetings. I think we had this conversation in January, and what that done is, I think just because of the delay in the number of members and then trying to organize a schedule, kind of creates more confusion when you have too many members. Now, I certainly don't have a problem with whatever we decide, but I just wanted to put it in perspective that, the more members you have, the more training you have to go through, and I certainly didn't want it to impede us in an already delayed audit selection and audit process. Now, my idea, and I had a conversation with the manager, and he expressed some different opinions that we could do it separately. Being that we have an ensuing audit that has to be done, I thought we could organize as an audit selection committee and then bring back, another audit committee solely for the oversight portion, as opposed to join them all two together. And that way we can have more time in vetting out the members that's on the board, because if you look on page 2 of the resolution, section 2 provides that they be residents of the city of Riviera Beach and have particular experience in public accounting or managing the activities of an annual financial audit for business or other governmental agency, or any other related experience and knowledge. And I'm only offering this because if we're gonna entrust this role of providing oversight, I would hope that they have some relative experience in the process. So, you know, I'm certainly open for any feedback, and that's to the chairperson on the phone as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, Mr. Evans or Ms. Nguyen, my question would be, if we did keep our committee at 5 with the potential of expanding to 7, how would that look within nominating an additional, or myself or the mayor nominating additional members?
If it is the pleasure of the board to expand the committee to 7, we would just have to allow for the appointment process, which would, in essence, them coming before the city council and being ratified as part of the agenda process. But it doesn't preclude them from attending the meetings or anything associated with that. And from the conversations that we had with the audit committee, I believe that the scope of work is rounding out quite nicely, but we know that there's some additional steps in the process that I don't think if someone was to join the board within 2 or 3 weeks, that they would be that far behind the curveball. We can certainly bring them up to speed to where they would be able to provide some substantive feedback, especially when the audit entities, auditors come in for their presentation before the audit committee. So I don't think it is too late to appoint somebody onto the board.
Yeah, and I would like to point out that if you keep it at 5, there are currently 5 members, which means that, I guess, Mr. Lawson would not have an appointee to that committee. If you allow him to have an appointee, that will make 6, then you run the risk of having a tie vote. And so my recommendation would be that you always have an odd number and that you go to 7.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Nguyen, but we haven't appointed 5 members as of yet, though. We've only
Remember-
confirmed or appointed, I believe,
I
3 or
believe-
4.
No, I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilperson Lanier, you appointed someone, correct? And then you're on there as well. That's what makes it 5.
Well, that's 2, and then we have
Mr. McCoy has appointed.
McCoy's is
All the
3.
others have appointed.
3 is McCoy, 4 is our chair, then who's the 5th?
Ms. Dr.
5
Botel.
is Vice Chair Botel.
Is she appointed a member as well?
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Norm Adams, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, board members, how do you want to proceed with this? I have no problem with the additional appointments. I think that if you're going to make your appointments to this committee, that they will be astute enough to become up to speed, and they can also attend the meetings without this formality, as long as we have this in place. So I don't have any issue with moving forward with adding that number 3 and number 7 to the resolution.
Also, one of the things that we need clarity from the board in the resolution is the term as to how long that the board recommends for individuals to serve on, and if the board is okay with the additional expansion of duties and responsibilities. And let me preface my comments by saying I asked the board at the audit committee if that was something that they would be interested in to assume additional roles and responsibilities, since they are already appointed, and they unilaterally said that they were fine with that. So I wanted to provide that as part of your discussion points this evening.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't have a problem with making it the number go up to 7, especially if Mr. Lawson has the opportunity to add name.
Did you all hear?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, she says she doesn't have a problem, especially given that Councilman Lawson has not made his appointment. Are there any other questions in regards to this resolution? Do we have a motion for this?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Ms. Nguyen, and I don't know if it'd be proper for the manager to share this or to seem as if we're possibly inserting ourselves in the scope, but Mr. Evans, would you be able to, I guess, share if that scope that has been discussed speaks to the term of the actual auditor. Have you guys gotten that far?
We have got the scope that has been discussed and agreed upon in principle from the committee was a 2-year contract with a 1-year option for renewal. That is what collectively the board felt comfortable with at their particular meeting. Now, they haven't taken any official action to ratify that, and Councilman, I will tell you that that was a tough decision for the board because they didn't want it to be too long of an engagement, and then the other challenge is if it's too short of an engagement, the concern is would somebody effectively look to apply to be our auditor, considering there's only 1 year or 2 years on the table for a contract. So in the discussions, the board felt comfortable at that 2 years with a 1-year renewal, but again, that still has to be ratified by the board, but that was the point of discussion at their first meeting.
I'm sorry, Mr. Evans. You said a whole lot, but you lost me. So they came up with 2 years with a 1-year option?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as I mentioned to you in our meeting, I wanted to see what the members would think about doing staggered terms. And I didn't particularly like 4 years because 4 years exceeds any other advisory board in the city. The most that I've seen on terms are 3 years. And if you had staggered terms, then you'll always have a member on that committee that's there from the prior selection committee process. So
Explain that process. How does that work? Staggered terms.
So for instance, you would if we have 7 members, you would you would do them like member A, B, and C, and then member A would probably, their term would end, after 2 years. Member in the class of B would end after 3 years, or something of that sort. But 4 years seems a little bit, in my opinion, unusual, which, I think it exceeds the contract of the auditor and every other board, and even of elected officials. So, you have a 4-year, and certainly, it happens because I know somebody that's served on the planning board for over 10 years. There was another guy for 12 years. So, it was just the thought that we should stagger the terms. That way you don't find yourself we're in 2020 now, you don't find yourself in 3 years, 2023, now you have the whole board that's up for appointment. And then if there are some issues that the oversight it has to do, then you really have members, all of them being basically up for appointment at the same time.
Well, I don't like the staggered terms, but I do agree with you on the point that if the contract itself is 2 year and 1 year, 3 years, that we can go for 3 years for the board members. That we don't have to do 4, that we can do, since the term of the contract for the auditor is a 3-year term, basically, then it could be 3-year terms for the actual members.
Madam Chair, if I may also, and doing research on this item, I've also seen where government entities have allowed for a longer term for members that are professionals and certified in such a field. So it may be a situation whereby those that have an accounting or CPA or auditing background serve a 3-year term, and other folks that do not have that experience serve a 2-year, from the purpose that it keeps some continuity and some institutional knowledge as the board potentially transitions. So that can be something that the board can consider as part of its discussions this evening.
What do you think about that, members? Having it where the people who are the CPAs have a 3-year term, the people who don't have that professional certification background have a 2-year term. How do you feel about that?
So, Madam Chair, the only concern I have is the individual that I'm thinking actually has served as a city manager before in another municipality, but he doesn't have the accounting background. But yet he would be an amazing asset for the audit committee. So if we limit his term, I think he'd be more beneficial serving as a 3-year term versus 2. But I do like the fact that the credentials, maybe not just make it a CPA, but make it have governmental affairs involvement, whether it's serving in official capacity within the city, whether it's having a CPA or accounting degree or license, but giving it some type of background.
And Councilman, to your point, certainly I think that individual with that type of experience would qualify for specialized in that particular field. And certainly, it's commendable for a city manager wanting to come back and
Right,
serve in
to
that
support,
capacity.
Right. So that's why I wouldn't want to limit it based on the verbiage we use for this resolution.
Okay, members, do we have any other questions or comments in regards to this item? No. Can I get a motion to approve this resolution?
So
with-
moved.
Okay,
And Madam Chair, just for clarity's sake, so we are going to expand to 7 members. 3, out of the 7 members, those that have a experience in business, financial accounting, et cetera, will serve a 3-year term. Those that do not will serve a 2-year term, and that the board is okay with the expanded duties and responsibilities of the audit committee.
Yes,
Question, Madam Chair.
go ahead.
That's fine. I just want to find out. So if that's true, so are we going to apply this in the future, this standard?
As far as other committees or just this
No,
one?
this committee. So
I would say this would be the standard
Going
in
forward?
perpetuity until the resolution is modified. Yes, sir.
until the resolution is modified.
Yeah, until the council decides to ever modify the resolution.
So, because other than Mr. Adams and my appointee, I don't know the credentials of the other ones. So, I mean, how would that, I mean, we would essentially be starting it right now. I don't know where that leads us.
That's one of the things that once we can, I think we do have, if I'm not mistaken, all the resumes and credentials. And
Mr. Evans, let me stop you right there. Did we have a second on this motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, you have.
Okay.
Mr. Lawson made the motion, Mr. McCoy second.
I didn't,
You didn't?
no.
Okay, then we don't have a second.
Okay, we need to get that straight. We wanted to make the motion to approve this resolution with the added language that Mr. Evans is has provided to us. We got a second.
No, Madam
not get a
Chair, we
second?
don't have a second.
He said so
let-
moved.
Mr. Lawson, and I thought I heard Mr. McCoy say second, he said that he did not say second. So at this point in time, you only have someone that made a motion. So the question becomes this, whether or not you make a second, someone does, do the second, which only Mr. McCoy is eligible to do the second, or it dies for a lack of a second.
I think it's just premature. I'll give a second. I just want to get clarification from the
No,
manager
it's
on.
fine. I just want to make sure that we have something on the table. We're not just-
Okay, Madam Chair, I was just advised that Councilperson Miller Anderson can second the motion as well,
Well,
if she so desires.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lawson, will you withdraw, please, so I can finish my questions of the manager?
I will withdraw the motion.
Madam Chair,
What did she say?
I did not
Couldn't hear.
understand that.
at
Okay,
the beginning, this was a resolution being read, right?
Yes.
Okay, I don't think this should have done it at the beginning perhaps, and then they had their discussion. So we still need to start of the discussion which way you go.
Okay, I believe what Madam, Ms. Miller Anderson is asking is whether or not a motion needs to be made in order for there to be a discussion on the item. The heading was read into the record, and a motion was not made. Mr. Evans went on into his presentation. So to continue with according to Robert's Rules of Order, in order to continue the discussion, a motion needs to be made.
And I was about to make that motion.
Okay.
The motion is being made, the resolution that is put before us.
As chair, you can't make the motion.
No, Councilperson Lawson withdrew his motion at the request of Councilperson McCoy. So in essence, right now, we do not have a motion on the floor.
So,
That's what we're going to do.
to continue
make a-
discussion, Madam Chair, to continue the discussion, I'm going to make the motion. So moved.
Second.
Not second.
Okay, there we go. See?
Oh.
Very simple.
Councilman
All right,
McCoy.
Councilman McCoy, you can go ahead and finish up this inquiry.
So, Mr. Evans, just a point of parliamentary, Ms. Anthony, can you please provide a reference to that you're speaking of in Robert's Rules of Order, sometime this week?
As it relate to
Yes,
making the motion, discussion before you?
yes.
Okay.
So, and I think I'm lost now. I just wanted to get some clarification about the staggered terms, and I don't even really remember where I was going to go with it, but
the staggered terms, and Councilman, correct me if I'm wrong, I think your question was, how will we effectively determine who would get the 3-year terms and the 2-year terms. That is something that we as staff, sitting down with the attorney's office and the internal auditor, can look at the credentials of those individuals and then provide some type of feedback back to the board at your next regular meeting to say, these are the individuals that we're considering the 3-year terms and the 2-year terms, just for clarity's sake, so the board knows exactly who is serving the longer terms based on their experience.
Follow up. So, Mr. Evans, you have those applications and/or resumes of those individuals now.
They're on file in the city clerk's
So
office.
you
I believe.
know who's who and where we stand as of now with what we've received.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That's all I need.
All right, Madam Chair, you call the question.
Madam Chair, if the board would allow me, I'm going to read the heading with the insertion of the word of selection committee so that it would be clean in
Okay,
essence.
very good.
And it would be resolution number 2720, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, establishing an audit selection committee and the duties and responsibilities required of the city's audit selection committee, confirming the appointment of individuals to serve as members of the audit selection committee and provide an effective date. And I believe Councilperson Lawson made the motion, and Councilperson McCoy made the second. Councilperson Miller Anderson and Councilperson McCoy stated at the same time. So, but I heard Councilperson McCoy's voice first, so that's who's will be recorded as the second. Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Chairperson Lanier.
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the motion carries. Let the record reflect that Pro Tem Botel is now on the dais. Councilperson Lanier, you can now pass the gavel on to Pro Tem Botel.
No, I didn't even get the gavel, I just left it there. We're at number 7. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
We're now at item number 7, resolution number 2820, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the temporary closure of North Ocean Avenue for the Hammerhead Production Festival, Jeeps on the Island, and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed, and let the record reflect that the time for Pro Tem Botel's arrival is 6:46 p.m.
We get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can have Director Blankenship present on Resolution 2028, and if the clerk can read the resolution into the record.
Number 7,
Seven.
I've read the
Oh,
heading.
okay.
I did it,
Okay, okay.
Mr. Evans.
And there was a
I
motion
know.
and a second.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, Richard Blankenship, Parks and Recreation Director. This is a procedural item that authorizes the closure of North Ocean for the Jeeps on the Island event. This is a change of date from something that you approved back in June for Hammerhead Productions. They requested the date be moved up so they won't conflict with with the Palm Beach Boat Show. So this is March 21st and 22nd. We are excited about this opportunity because if you know anything about Jeep owners, they are pretty fanatical about showing off their equipment. So we anticipate a great weekend of activity. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Madam Chair. Mr. Blankenship, do we know the hours that the road is going to be closed, or is it going to be closed throughout the night?
Well, actually, this is a very busy weekend. The Palm Beach Palm Beach Triathlon is that morning on Saturday. So the road closes Friday night so they can set up This event starts around noon, and it'll reopen the roads around 9 p.m. and then close again Sunday morning and reopen Sunday evening.
Okay, Mr. Evans, so can we follow up personally? And I just had some concerns about us closing the roads and what that looks like as far as when we close our roads for special events and private events and the public's ability not to use those events. What does the city actually, I guess, inures to our benefit financially for doing that? And I want to make sure it's something that is that staff can go back and look at and make sure that this is a fair amount.
That is not a problem. Councilman McCoy's staff will provide a memorandum and send it out to the balance of the board concerning that item.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, yes, piggybacking off of Councilman McCoy, I'm concerned about the public safety. How is that going to work in terms of public safety with Jeeps all over the beach?
Well, they won't actually be on the beach. They'll be static. They won't be moving. They'll be parked for demonstration. And then part of the requirement is the event maker has to provide how many ever police officers the police department requires. So it's not like there's a bunch of Jeeps moving
Okay, so there
around.
won't be any issue with pedestrians or anything
No,
like that?
not at
Okay.
all.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anything else? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Item number 8, resolution number 2920, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Palm Beach County to accept vouchers from the county's Drowning Prevention Coalition Program for redemption of payment for swimming lessons provided by the Parks and Recreation Department and providing an effective date. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
So moved.
Second.
This is our annual interlocal agreement with the county. The county funds the Drowning Prevention Coalition. This allows individuals to apply for a voucher. They bring the voucher to Barracuda Bay, and they get free swimming lessons. Annually, when I present this, I always say, there's no reason why somebody in Riviera Beach does not know how to swim. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Madam Chair? Yes. Mr. Blankenship, how many vouchers were utilized last year?
I don't know the number of vouchers. I can tell you we did around 500 swimming lessons. Not all of those were vouchers, but the great majority of those were. The year before that, we did about 800.
800. And we spoke in our agenda review about just increasing the numbers and getting more residents to actually take advantage of these swimming lessons. So I'd really love just to get a plan on how we're going to attack that and get as many people involved and engaged as possible.
Yes, absolutely.
I do have one question. So I hate to be selfish about this, but the backup says that swim lessons for residents are $30 and for residents and $40 for non-residents. Does non-residents take advantage of this voucher?
The Drowning Prevention Coalition sends a lot of non-residents our way because we have our hours of operation are conducive. We do them on Saturdays. So Drowning Prevention Coalition may send non-residents to us for lessons.
Would you say that's a stipulation in getting this grant?
Yes, we can't
Exclude?
exclude.
Okay, good enough.
Well, we can exclude if they don't live in Palm Beach County.
Thank you.
And just one more question, I would just like to, he can bring that back later, the percentage of City of Riviera Beach residents in that 500.
We will do that.
And so, question, Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Councilwoman, you're asking for the 500 or of the grant amount?
Well, actually both. I'm asking for the 500 in general, on how many Riviera Beach residents, and then particularly the ones that are getting the vouchers.
Understood.
Madam Chair, if I may, also, we can provide a historical perspective to see if our number of residents have gone up or gone down over the last couple of years, so we can see if maybe we've found a place that marketing to the community has been more successful or we're not doing enough.
Madam Chair? And I
ahead.
would say, just to Mr. Evans' point, we saw a major drop-off from 2 years ago to last year. So what can we do to address that? From 800 to 500 is a substantial number of residents that have this service that we want to offer, so.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
how are we marketing this?
Our typical, we do the hard copy brochures, we do social media, we do banners on the Barracuda Bay fencing, and we may even do some banners across the street. I think we do have some across the street.
So it's nothing that goes out to every
Right.
household? Is it something that goes out to every
No,
household?
we could do utility bills. We have not done that since I've been here, but we could do that.
That may be something to look at, too.
Mr. Blankenship, you may remember that probably a year and a half ago, you and I sat down with some folks who represented the school district, and particularly folks who represented the preschool program in the city. And I think that we ought to take up that task again and see if we can make some headway this time. I would love to see preschool programs make the swimming program a part of their offerings. And I'm sure that there's a way we can work this out. It didn't
We can.
It didn't catch fire last time, but I'm willing to give it another shot, because I think those little ones, once they get, when they're 3 and 4, and the fear of the water is not so inculcated, that maybe we'll have a better success rate. So let's, you and I, work on that. Thanks. Anything else? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier? Yes. Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yeah.
Chair Botel?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Item number 9, resolution number 30-20, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving an amendment between the Board of County Commissioners, Palm Beach County, Florida, and the City of Riviera Beach, Florida, accepting additional funding in the amount of $47,165 to provide for the Reentry Center on-the-job training program for the continuation of reentry services, authorizing the Director of Finance and Administrative Services to amend the budget for the same, and authorizing the Mayor and City Clerk to execute the agreement and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can have Mr. Ori Bullard, the Director of the Justice Service Center, present this item.
Good evening, Council, Honorable Mayor, Mr. Manager, Ori Bullard, Director of the Reentry Center. What you have before you is an amendment to the interlocal agreement between the Board of County Commissioners and the City of Riviera Beach for our on-the-job training program. It's also known as the Innovative Reentry Initiative Program. And so effectively, they want to increase our funding for the program by $47,000 and also increase the number of clients that will be eligible for the program. So we're going from 40 clients and participants to 50. And so based on our past performance, they've allocated some additional funding to give to our program to continue the program.
Questions? No questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Or I just wanted to let you know, Mr. Bullock, amazing job with the program. Keep pushing it. It's something that's vital in this community, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I also like to say that I think this is a very good model program that the city needs to continue to fund, and to find additional dollars, especially in terms of even the voucher program for the swimming. We need to be looking at grant dollars to fund some of these activities so that, don't put so much burden on the taxpayers.
Anything else?
Madam Chair, great job, too. Mr. Will, I didn't know you had a twin. I was talking to you the other day.
Oh, yeah.
He told me he was your twin. Y'all look
We're
just
identical.
alike.
Yeah.
But great job. Something else I'd like to get with you about. I was meeting with Coca-Cola, and we're in the process really of trying to get them to hire offenders.
Okay.
And so if we can get together just to set a meeting with them, kind of share what that program is you have running.
Okay.
And see if we can get some of those guys some jobs at Coca-Cola.
Definitely, we can put it together. And also, April is Second Chance Month. I'll be coming back to you all. So I think it'll be a great opportunity for us to link up.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, don't feel bad. I was speaking to him, but it was really his brother. So it happened to me, too.
I concur, that happened to me as well. Madam Chair, if I may, though, they've been doing exceptional work at the reentry program, but Mr. Bullard, if you can please explain how this grant, this additional $47,000 came to the City of Riviera Beach, because it wasn't by mere happenstance, it was because of the efforts of Mr. Bullard and his team.
Yeah, definitely. So we applied back in 2017 for the original funding, which was $173,000. And so there are 3 providers within the county that essentially do what we do. And so our program stood out, and we have the most involved clientele, I guess. Our base, they're all engaged. And it's over the last year and a half, they've kind of looked at the other programs and seen where they want to allocate the additional funding. And so it's because of the success of our program. I have an incredible staff of social workers that are involved in the lives of these men and women that are returning to our area. And so right now we're working with the CDC on a home on First Street. And so they're rehabbing that home. That'll be done within a couple of weeks, and we're going to invite everyone out. But that's essentially, we had the county to come out and look and see what we're doing. We have 6 to 8 guys that are on that project. So they're learning carpentry, masonry, some HVAC, landscaping. They've done painting. They've done a myriad of things that they're learning. And while they're on that 10 to 12 week project, we have them coming in and we're doing some cognitive behavioral interventions. So a part of their week is they do the on-the-job training, and then they come into our office to do some classroom programs also throughout that week. And so that's all their week look like. It looks like a typical school, I guess like a school program, but they have the on-the-site, and then they have the classroom items that they come into. So the county looked at the programs that were going on during this time frame and allocated us the funding based on our performance over the last year and a half.
It's wonderful.
So we're excited about that.
I have a question. Some time ago, we had been having those hard-to-hire group meetings, and we've not had one in quite some time. And at one of the most recent meetings, we set up a system so that the various providers, the small people who deal with returning citizens, have a pathway to get them to you.
Right.
Ron Dixon was going to be helping so that we had those 100 employers who were willing to hire returning citizens, and we didn't want them bombarded with calls from everyone. So we set up the system. Is that working? How's it working?
Yeah, so we've it's working. There's some things to kind of polish up because we're working now with CareerSource, and so we have there's actually a reentry department within CareerSource now, thanks to our efforts over the last year and a half. And so we have a contact there that we're able to kind of connect the guys to. And so we've kind of used CareerSource, and we want to kind of bring them into what we're doing. They've actually come out to the site and everything. So we're trying to channel that through CareerSource because they have the most expansive base of actual jobs in the city. Or in the county, rather.
Would it be valuable to continue to have that hard-to-hire group get together?
Yeah, I think we can definitely get together and just kind of see how we can streamline some of the things.
Then will you chair it?
Will I chair it? We'll take that back to the staff. And,
We'll talk. Let's talk.
No, definitely. That's something we can do. I don't have a problem doing that.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. Great job again. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Item number 10, discussion of the Community Benefits Program. Madam Chair, we do have a public comment card on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed. Madam Chair, okay.
Madam Chair and members of the board, this item that is before you this evening stems from conversations that we've had at our workshops that were held on Saturdays and some conversations that I've had with board members individually about looking at the community benefits program. And so our assistant to the city manager, Ms. Marcia Noel, has had an opportunity to meet with most of the board and get some input and feedback, and then did some extensive research as far as what other government entities are doing concerning this particular matter. So if the board would indulge staff, we would like to make a presentation concerning the community benefits programs and proposed modifications.
All right, good evening. Marcia Noel, Assistant to the City Manager. Just as Mr. Evans has stated, I've had the fortunate privilege to do some research and come before you this evening to share some ideas with you that I've come up with through my research to consider, as I understand it is the interest of some of you, to improve perhaps how we're currently implementing the community benefits program. And so I will begin with a presentation that I prepared. I realize that it's very bright, but if anyone has trouble, no worries. I will be speaking through each slide to ensure that everyone understands. All right, so first, what is the community benefits program? So currently, it is an optional benefit under the current contract with Waste Management, Inc., that provides an annual community support of $90,000 to the city for public purpose benefits. And this program dates back to 2011, and it's currently being administered under the legislative office. Okay, so before I get into some of the things that I looked into when coming up with the alternatives that I'll be presenting to you, I had an opportunity to make some observations as to what Mr. Evans said. I had the opportunity to meet with some of you on an individual basis to hear from you what your experience has been with implementing this program. In addition, I've had the opportunity to talk with Ellen Smith, our waste management representative, to hear from her as to what other cities who have this program are doing. In addition, I've spoke to the finance department. And also, I've considered what the perspectives may be from the community at large and potential applicants or recipients of the program. In addition, prior to my role with the city of Riviera Beach, I had the fortunate opportunity to be a program manager with the city of Fort Lauderdale, developing new programs and also streamlining programs. And so I've kind of used my expertise or my background to look at this from an objective standpoint as much as I can to hopefully provide you with something useful. So let's kind of talk about some of the benefits to the current program that I've been able to hear from some of you and even gauge myself. I think the outstanding thing that's been said for the most part is that the community benefits program is an opportunity to make a meaningful impact to the community. How? Well, first, it supports community partners. Secondly, it's an opportunity to build relationships with those in and outside of our community. In addition, it engages the community. And lastly, it can meet real community needs as well. So let's move on to maybe what some of the current challenges are with the program implementation. And like I said, I had an opportunity to speak with most of you and kind of consider some perspectives. And so these are just general themes that I've gotten from our discussions. The first being that you receive a large volume of sporadic and continual requests. And oftentimes that's met with time constraints and lack of manpower. And so from what I understand, the current policy doesn't necessarily provide as to when and maybe if there's any limitations as to the amount of requests that you receive. I understand that time to time you allocate small spurts, perhaps, of funding to different requesters. And so I can understand, especially being as busy as you are, taking on other major priorities of the city, that it can be sometimes a challenge to manage the volume of requests that you get. In addition, you do have legislative aides. From what I understand, some of them do assist. But if they are working on a part-time basis, as some of you are in your role, it could present some challenges as well. The second challenge is lack of accountability measures for recipients. When I took a look at the policy, and I do want to state that there's an attachment to the memo of our most current policy that I was able to pull up, Resolution 15711, just so everyone's aware, so you can kind of look at that as I speak. But there's nothing really in there that stipulates exactly what we're doing to track and ensure that recipients are utilizing funding in the way that they are requesting for. So that's one issue. And then the next one is that because perhaps of the lack of accountability, we're not certain as to whether recipients are truly addressing the needs of the community. The next is lack of transparency. Not necessarily that work isn't being done, but what measures are put in place to ensure that we can make it visible visible for ourselves and the community that recipients are in fact utilizing dollars appropriately. And a lot of times that can be due to, one, the lack of information online or places where people can access information about the program. I understand that they hear about it perhaps mentioned in the council meetings. They may be calling your offices or hearing it through hearsay, but when I did some research on our website, it was quite difficult. I didn't find a web page or anything in particular to provide me that information. The next item, lack of visibility of program recipients and outcomes. So maybe just not having enough information about maybe who past recipients have been and things of that sort, maybe seeing the outcomes as well. And then the next challenge as well, and this is more so on the operational side, is that the program is currently being ran through a paper-based method. So I understand there's a physical application or a physical request form, and oftentimes, especially nowadays, we tend to lean more towards electronic means or electronic options to make our programs more streamlined. But if we can package all of these challenges in one word, I would say that the overarching theme is that the current implementation process can be quite burdensome. And so keeping all of that in mind, how then do we improve our community benefits program policy? There are two principles in particular that I'd like to highlight as to how we can improve the policy, and hopefully you'll see this reflected in the alternatives that I present. But the first one being that we create a policy that addresses all of the concerns that I just shared. And by doing so, we can achieve three things. One, making it more efficient and effective. Two, making it more simplified. Three, communicating clear expectations. The community or those who are interested in participating will understand what our needs or requirements are, or what our expectations are of them, and vice versa. And then the second principle is you always want to align your programs or any initiatives that you do ultimately with your city's strategic goals and objectives. Now, this was prior to my time, but I learned that you had the opportunity to spend almost a full day working on strategic goals and objectives, which are phenomenal. And so this can give us some sort of guidance as to how we can streamline and improve our programs to meet our city goals. Currently, we have 5 strategic goals, and 3 of which I believe that this program can meet. The first being operational excellence, the second being government stewardship and accountability, and the third being community engagement and empowerment. So with all that said, if we keep that in the front of our minds, I will go through each of the alternatives. I will disclose to you early that the first alternative might require a bit more time, just so that I can get through it and make sure that everyone understands exactly what this one is. The other 2 are fairly simple and won't take as much time. So for alternative 1, it's an application and selection process. You oftentimes see this with grant programs where dollars are distributed. And so this is an opportunity for us to consider making the community benefits program an application, providing an application and selection process. So what I did for this alternative is I looked at our current policy and essentially tweaked it, changed it around so that it can meet our efficiency, effectiveness, and so forth. And in addition to tweaking the 4 sections that it currently houses, I've also added some additional sections to address some of those concerns I spoke about earlier. So for the first section, labeled as donations, and I do have a paper copy here in case I can't read that myself. The first one is waste management shall contribute. And I do want to start with, I will go through this first alternative and allow me to go through it first. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can ask after each alternative. I say that only because you might have questions that pop up that I may be answering as I go through the slides. All right, so waste management shall contribute a total of $90,000 per year to the city for use by the city. And I do want to stop there. So I have it bolded city only because I don't know if you choose to go this route with alternative 1, that whether it would be something you'd want to continue to administer through the legislative office or consider for city administration. So I'm using that term generally. So by the city for public purposes as defined herein. The $90,000 amount shall be donated on a one-time, and that's bolded, one-time annual basis until the expiration of the franchise agreement, unless there are extenuating circumstances to be determined by the city, and the funds shall be used within 1 year in which they are received. The second section, public purpose. For this piece, I only extracted what would be relevant now that we're changing around the lingo. But the section that I extracted is simply that the public purposes include, but are not limited to, charitable events, not-for-profit organizational events or programs, and city functions or projects. The third section, ineligible uses. And this mainly remained the same. I just added a few pieces to that, which are somewhat bolded, and I'll read through this one as well. Ineligible uses of funds include the purchases of tables at events, and this is added, promoting religious beliefs. And then I'll continue, but I want to stop there for a second. So after speaking with Ellen, it's my understanding that maybe in the past there has been a request to have dollars distributed to a funeral service, and some individuals may, you could, challenge that and say, well, that's not a public purpose anyway, but oftentimes any particular event or initiative that may be more religious oriented is something you may want to stay away from as a public agency. It doesn't mean that churches or faith-based organizations cannot apply for the funding as so long as the activity or what have you is for a public good, such as churches who do food sharing for the homeless or clothes sharing for individuals who are seeking work. And so I'll continue. And so contributions to campaigns, payment for salaries, or for operational expenses. Funds cannot be used to cover elected official or city staff. And I highlighted, not highlighted, but bolded that. So I added city staff only because I believe that this is applicable to any and everyone in the organization to hold us all accountable. So city staff travel, meals, or for his or her personal benefit or gain for the personal gain of relatives as defined by the city's codes, the countywide code of ethics, or state statutes as applicable. Funds cannot be given to an entity, agency, organization for which the elected official or city staff is the director or officer. All right, alternative one continued. All right, so the fourth section, procedure for requesting and releasing funds. So this is where the changes occur on blank date of every year. And I have it blank because when I spoke with Ellen, from what I understand, they can release those funds whenever we choose. Currently, our policy states there's a release of funds on April 1st and October 1st. But if you choose to go a different route with the current program, you can actually select another date, so that's flexible. Waste Management will submit a $90,000 check to the city of Riviera Beach as contemplated by the franchise agreement. The city will undergo an application process to select recipients. The city will review applicants and select recipients according to a application guidelines and selection criteria. There will be, and this is where the change occurs as well, there will be blank number of awards of X dollars each, and an example for that could be there will be 9 awards of $10,000 each. Recipients will be notified through a letter to the entity, agency, organization acknowledging Waste Management as a donor of funds. Donations will be distributed directly from the finance department to the recipients. A side note to this is that if you do pursue an application process, you may want to consider a month-long time frame to have that application available with an addition of 2 weeks for a selection process. And sometimes the selection process can be quite lengthy only because you don't know how many applicants you can receive. And being that this is a pretty popular program, you could see anywhere between 100, maybe 150 applicants. If you want to include a selection, an interview process, or any other components to a selection process, giving yourself at least 2 weeks could maybe be doable in selecting your final recipients. All right, so additional sections that are not currently included in the policy that I've added is a section for applicants, applicant guidelines. The first being must be a 501c3, and therefore they would have to provide documentation. The second is the use of funds must be to the direct benefit of the city of Riviera Beach. This is not currently stated in the policy, but I think it would be beneficial that it's clear to the community or to potential applicants that you must show proof that this is going to benefit our community, that those dollars can follow the individuals or the community. The third piece of this is they must complete the program application. The next is they must provide proof of past performance. It's my understanding that with certain organizations or requests that you receive, you may not be too familiar perhaps with what they've done in the past, and so this allows for you to ensure that you have documentation at the beginning to give you the confidence to move forward or for them to prove their reputation. The next is the public purpose initiatives of which funding is requested for must align with any of the following categories. And keeping in mind, again, the city's goals and visions, these categories include public safety, workforce development, economic development, environmental sustainability, youth empowerment, education, health to include mental and physical, senior services, and community engagement. And this, of course, is flexible if you think of any other ideas. The next is applicants must participate in at least 2 approved city volunteer opportunities. A list will be provided, and proof of participation must be included with the application by attaching a filled community benefit program volunteer timesheet. In speaking with some of you, I think this was a great idea only because, if individuals want to get from the organization, I think there's an expectation that there's some skin in the game, that folks will actually take the time to participate with the city in whatever initiatives that we're doing. One that comes to mind is like the CLEAN program. I think in discussions we've talked about maybe creating a task force and getting folks in the community to help seniors push items out so that they can participate in that sort of initiative, maybe in public safety with our police department, fire department, or anywhere else where we can leverage some manpower, some extra support. This could be a way in which you can make appeal for that. The next is only volunteer activities completed within a year before the application opens will be taken into consideration. This is there only because you want to make sure that applicants aren't going back 5 years to apply. You want to keep that engagement year to year. And then the last element is that, and this was actually a suggestion by our councilperson Anderson, maybe we want to consider a mandatory orientation prior to an application opening up. If you want these dollars, then you can attend an orientation to get a better understanding as to what this program requires. And then by doing so, so long as you meet the applicant guidelines, we could consider you for the program. And I do want to say, I know that this sounds like a lot, but as I get further into my presentation, I'm going to show you award options, because I think that if much is going to be required, they'd know why. It's because maybe the award packages are a lot more as well, and so we want to hold folks accountable. All right, so the next piece to this is
Chair.
recipient guidelines.
So let me ask you this,
Yep.
Ms. Noel.
Go ahead.
How many alternatives did you come up with?
Just 3. This one, I know, like I said earlier, this one's going to take just a little bit of time, only because I want to make sure I do this justice. I know that this is a $90,000 grant, and so I think it warrants some explanation if this alternative is considered. And I considered this alternative because it's common practice oftentimes, especially for something that kind of runs like a grant program.
The last 2 are much shorter.
Yeah, these are, and Dr. Botel knows because I went through this with you. So this is, I think, the last slide before I get into the next 2. So after
Hold
this,
on. I'm sorry,
we can
Madam Chair.
discuss a little bit
Madam
more.
Chair.
Go ahead.
We got it.
Well,
got it.
can we, Madam Chair, can we, and certainly I respect what it is that you're doing, but I have some questions about the first alternative, and I don't want you to get way down the line because I can only write so fast.
Okay.
And
I know, I'm sorry, I was speeding through it.
I want to
Go ahead.
I didn't have the opportunity to view the proposed alternatives. But,
It's okay.
so the part, if you can go back one slide, I've seen something says the applicant must participate in at least 2 city,
Volunteer activities.
Volunteer activities, correct.
well, I don't know how that helps the organization or serves a public purpose. That seems like it serves a city purpose.
Well, so long as the activity is for public purpose as a public agency, like the idea that I had in mind, for instance, like when I brought up the CLEAN program, it allows for organizations that may want to participate or receive funding to, like I said, kind of invest
Right.
in the community a bit by participating in something that benefits others.
We've seen, I've seen nonprofits that I didn't even know existed. I've seen such a wide array of different organizations come and ask for dollars.
Yeah.
They may not be equipped to participate in an organization like this. I got someone that asked me for assisting with senior citizens in some programs. So I'm thinking, like, what are you going to require of a senior citizen to come and do and volunteer if they're seeking assistance?
So,
Madam.
to that point, my recommendation would be, at a lot of events, we're looking for someone to work a registration booth or some type
Variety.
of sweat equity into what we're trying to accomplish here as a city based on your 5 overarching goals. And so that was the intent, that does the board, and that particular provision can easily be removed. It's just that a lot of times we have entities that request monies for community benefits, but can we really see that all the monies that's being expended, is it accomplishing what the intent is, and is the city seeing these individuals more than just the once or twice a year when they're coming to request funds?
I agree, Madam Chair. I agree, but this is too much. These are mini grants. These are $300, $500. I think that all of this that is required is too punitive. These agencies are coming to us because they're struggling to get funding anyway. So if you give them $300 or $500, you're helping the agency. There are not going to be any evidence-based outcomes with this. It's just going to be making sure that the agency is, can pay their light bill this month. So to have this whole long, drawn-out process for $300 and for agencies that are struggling to get funding as it is, I think it's too punitive.
No, I completely understand.
Madam Chair.
Shama's on the phone.
Hello?
She was like, who's that?
Can I speak?
Go ahead.
I think, I understand what everyone is saying, but if Ms. Noel finished that second one with the amount, maybe that will bring it into perspective. Because right now, I understand what everybody is saying about this piece of 500 grants, and we have all stipulations. But if Ms. Noel can just summarize the quick that first, then we'll be back to our discussion.
I understand.
I don't even see that. I don't know who that.
Kashamba, it's very hard to understand what you're saying. I think what I hear you
I know
saying,
it's difficult, which is why I'm not talking about it.
She was, the chair was saying that if you would allow for Ms. Noel to show you the different options, based on the options and the proposed guidelines, then maybe it would provide additional clarity, because we're looking to increase the amount of the grants versus a $300 grant, where there could be a situation where you have a $10,000 grant or a $5,000 grant, just depending on what the board's pleasure is. So that's why the stipulations here were a little bit more more demanding, because the grant funding was more of the than your traditional allocation.
could I make a recommendation that I really, trust me that what she has to say, the rest of what she has to say is much shorter than what she said so far. And if we could listen to the rest of it, I think what we might want to think about is tweaking this business about, because this seems to me that this business about volunteer activities, that they have to volunteer, maybe that's for the grantees that receive a couple of $1,000s, and they're more, we can look at each one case by case, But let's, if we can just let her go through the rest of her
But
presentation.
let me say something to this, Madam Chair, to this alternative, that I don't think that Waste Management should be recognized as a donor. They're giving us this money based on a contract that they received to us. It should be the city should be recognized, because this is a part of their contract. They only give us this money because we gave them a contract.
Well,
Yeah,
well, I'm glad this discussion is going this way. And you know what? I didn't want to say it, but I'm okay with not even having it. Because I had somebody that contacted me that was disgruntled and said, what's the status of my application? And I'm saying to myself, who are you and why does one feel entitled? And it becomes too much.
Yeah,
It really does. And here's the thing. We got 3.5 weeks before a new allotment is set to come in. I would hope that, I don't even like to deal with it. That's just me personally, because it's becoming too much of a problem. And even your first alternative, and I say this respectfully, it seems like now you're just shifting the responsibility off of us and putting it on administration. And I don't know if we should be spending this kind of time on giving things to organizations that there is no accountability on. So I didn't want to kind of get premature in this, but I think it kind of opened it up. But I don't, if it goes away, I'll be okay with it. And I reserve an opportunity to put that out as a motion if the members.
No, Madam Chair, I'm not going that far. Because I think that these agencies, they're nonprofit agencies that are in this city that are struggling to get funding.
Mm-hmm.
They have small staff. They serve a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking. If the money is there, this is the condition of the contract, and based on what I'm seeing, it should be more than that. Based on the amount of money that Waste Management makes off of this city, it should be more money given to the residents and to nonprofits in the city. So if we're going to have a discussion, it should be about more money being put out to residents and to nonprofits in the city. Second of all, this should be a Saturday workshop, because there's a lot of issues into this. We're going to get bogged down in the weeds with, we should think it should be this, it should be that. So I think that we should workshop this, because I have some issues on the point. I have some questions about things. And I think that it should be fleshed out in a forum where we have the time and the opportunity to go through each of these points.
Madam Chair?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Lawson first, Kashamba, and then, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually in agreement with Councilwoman Lanier, being that this contract, we're going back out for RFP. We don't know if our next waste contract will even have community benefit. That may not be our request after we workshop this. We have one more cycle within the current terms. So to implement a new process that's going to be taken on and just pass the buck, as Councilman McCoy has stated, I think that's just kind of pushing the problems around. Right now, I have 14 organizations that were supported over this year using these community benefits. I have tangible evidence and information where each community benefit individual can come and speak upon, because that was part of the requirement that I wanted us to put at the very beginning when we addressed community benefits. I do agree that we should table this and continue to have this discussion at a workshop time, because there's no point of changing it now when we're going to be starting a new contract within the next year. Because as of right now, we have a new contract that's coming out, and there's only one more cycle for this. So to change the entire process, it makes no sense now when the next contract may not even have community benefit.
Okay. Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
I'll hold off.
Okay. Mr. City Manager, is this something we can bring forth in a workshop session?
The saying that they taught all city managers, if it is the pleasure of the board, we can certainly do that.
It seems to be the pleasure of the board, yes.
We can certainly postpone this item for one of our Saturday workshops.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I did announce that we did have public
Yeah.
comment cards on this item. We have two.
Why don't we hear from the public? On discussion?
Yes, they are allowed to put in public comment cards on discussion items.
Okay, so we'll hear the public and then
Okay.
we'll.
And I believe the chair has something to
thank
say
you.
as well.
I just wanted to thank you, Ms. Noel, for doing a great job. I know you spent a lot of time on this, and we appreciate your time. And we
It's
will
okay.
take the time at a workshop to listen to all of the ideas you have and
It's
discuss
okay.
them thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Ms. Billa Anderson wanted to say something.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
So if we wait, what happens to the allotment?
Say it again.
I think she's asking what happened.
What happens with the allotment
What happens to the allotments that we have now? Is that your question?
Yes.
The allotments, we would still continue the program status quo. And the intent behind this presentation was that if the board would want to see modifications, that any prior commitments on it, obviously you would want to honor those, but how you would manage the particular program. And to Councilman McCoy's point, this type of program is not very common in a lot of other entities for multiple reasons. In addition to, as much as we want to believe that Waste Management is giving us the money, actually the residents are paying the fees and then they're giving us back the residents' money. So, you know, something to consider in future contract is saying reduce the resident rate based on the $90,000 that you give us per quarter or what have you, versus having a program such as this.
My sense, I think, from all of us is that we'd prefer to have the residents' rates be lower and not have to deal with this $90,000. It is burdensome, and it does good, it does, as Councilwoman Lanier says, it does good things for the community, but I think we might be able to find other ways to do that. In any case, we're going to workshop this.
Yes.
Great. Comments from the public.
Bonnie Larson, Mary Brown.
Bonnie Larson, Ms. Noel, you did a tremendous job. Thank you. That was a lot of work. And Mr. Evans, what you just said, I got in my notes right here, because we, the residents, pay Waste Management. We pay them for our utilities, picking up our trash. We pay them for vegetation, which not everybody uses. We have to pay anyway. I use it, but not everybody does. So wouldn't it be nice if we had that money back in our community? Wouldn't that be nice? Because we pay it every month, and we pay it also at the end of the year in our taxes. We pay again. And what I've noticed over the years is that a lot of times council people are requesting the money that night. No, this has got to be done in advance and vetted out, et cetera, et cetera. They can't come on the last minute there. And my proposal is, I hope at that workshop we get to say something. I hope, because we have some good ideas, I think. A proposal would be to keep the community benefits something that benefits our community, meaning Riviera Beach. We got a lot of requests from schools, and of course that involves Riviera Beach students, but other students as well. And I don't know of any other city that gives us anything in advance. So, and oftentimes, another thing is oftentimes we do it for dinners, parties, uniforms. Let's make it something permanent. I hate to applaud this person, the former Singer Island person, but I have to say, got to give credit where credit is due. She did buy a bench for over there for the walking, or it was a water fountain or something, and for cleaning up the fire department. It was something that stayed in the community. Let's teach our kids to do something permanent with our money. Let's not spend every dime we have burning a hole in your pocket, they used to call it. Let's do something for our community alone, because we are the ones who pay for it. And a lot of times, like I said, their dinners, parties, you forget about that. The next week, you've forgotten about a party, you know. So let's make it something that we can see. We need a lot of lighting in the city. People complain about they don't have speed bumps in their area. So let's do something that years later we can say, this is part of the payment we made to Waste Management. It came back to us in this form, something tangible. And you mentioned sweat equity. Well, we're not always, like someone said, we're not always spending that much money, 500 here, 500. We need to keep a list, obviously. There must be a list somewhere of what entities have gotten money. I know that 3-4 of our previous council gave to a 501(c), which doesn't even exist anymore. Does it say that it has to be a 501(c)(3)? Why can't it come back to our community? Do something. Every community needs something, so let's put that money to good use. And you know what? You talked about having them do some volunteer work, and if you're giving big amounts, yeah. The thing is, I have never, ever heard someone who got money from us in the way of waste management come back here and say thank you. Never have I heard that.
Mary Brown.
Good evening, Mary Brown, Riviera Beach. Residents, I want you to hear me loud and clear. because any of them, we have talked about this numerous of times. This is nothing but a pay-to-play scheme. And the council peoples has whittled this city with this scheme. Waste management, every stakeholder and residents pay into this here. You distribute this money out to your friends and your buddies who you know. See, Ms. Graham can come in here and put it out on the carpet for you, but I won't do that tonight because this is what you all do with this money here. It should be retooled. I, along with the rest of the community base, you could not have done a marvelous presentation, Ms. Marshall, than what we as residents have said. This is not your money. See, the council, peoples down in West Palm Beach, they went to jail for doing the same type of stuff. And they abandoned some of this play-to-play money here for these entities that want to come into the city to do business. You all will know better. Some of you all will know better. Because, see, I know you got family, friends, and buddies that you give this money out to. We will bring some of them in here and let them stand before these podiums and tell you how they get your money. And then you write the invoices. You get a cut and they get their cut too. Why Ms. Graham know this? This is factual. I don't speak it off the top of my head here. The city, it should be turned over to the city. And if you want to abandon it, abandon it. But you all should not be allowed to distribute any of our taxpayers' money. We're struggling to pay these water bills as it is. And you as a governing board gonna sit up there and give it to who you want to give it to? No, it won't work like that. Because Ms. Brand will hold this against every last one of you all, from the mayor on down. This would be a strike against you. Because we as a base, we have constantly said that this money belongs to the whole entire city. Not just who you want to give it to and how you want to spend it. If Waste Management is not a good company, well, they should not be in the city here. In order for them to come into this city here and give us $90,000 a year, think how much $90,000 can do to improve our communities, lay grass, help the elderly with the windows, the doors. No, you all set up your programs, and this is what happens here. Yeah, Ms. Bram, I'm gonna put you out on the carpet here. And you don't want that. So you all better think and think twice and accept this here, and let's stop this foolishness with our money, because you won't be here long. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes. Madam Chair, the time is now 7:41. If you would not mind, Madam Chair, to read the statement into the record.
I got it. Public comments shall begin at 7:30 p.m. unless there is no further business of the City Council, which in that event, it shall begin sooner. In addition, if an item is being considered at 7:30 p.m., then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded.
Madam Chair, the acceptance of public comment cards for this particular section of the agenda is now closed. Bonnie Larson, Lloyd Brown, James Elder.
Bonnie Larson, a couple questions. We talked last year or so about expense reports of the council and the mayor and the city manager being online. I haven't seen that yet. Has someone told you not to do that? Maybe? I don't know, but what about that? We were told that would happen because there was a lot of question about it before. And my second question is, why are department heads still signing off on issues versus, why are staff still signing off on issues rather than the department heads? Mr. Evans, you answered that last time, but I forgot what you said. I saw some people hanging around the LED sign out front. I hope that's a good I hope that's a good sign. They were from a company. I see tonight, okay, this afternoon I drove by, and it was talking about the State of the City address. It didn't say anything about the meeting tonight. Should have been tonight. Last time the CRA had a meeting, there's a misconnect here somewhere, because I said to the CRA, why isn't your meeting on the agenda? Now, Mr. Evans has put on several meetings ahead where we know there's going to be a city council meeting. CRA wasn't on there. And I asked the CRA, and they said, well, we have no control over what the city does. But there's a disconnect, because the CRA has got to tell Miss Anthony to put it on there, and Miss Anthony's got to tell the IT department. So there's a disconnect here in the communication. But at CRA meetings, there's a vital part of the city that needs to go on our agenda so that we know. I saw at the CRA today, they're having a meeting on the 11th. Well, it doesn't show that on our website because someone didn't put it on there. The medians, are those taken care of by the city or DOT? Because I drove by, and I've been driving by, and the weeds are like 8 to 10 inches high north of Broadway. Now, today I noticed someone was out there cutting it, but they shouldn't get that high. We get fines if we don't take care of our yard, but those weeds were that high. So that needs to be done more often by somebody. If it's a city, city needs to do it. If it's DOT, let's call DOT. Oh, back on the waste management for just a second. Several years ago, somebody complained to Riviera Beach. I don't know, it was a state attorney or somebody up in Tallahassee. Somebody complained about the way the city was using waste management funds. So we need to go back. Somebody here will know who did that and where that report is, so that the people developing these things will know what we were criticized for before. Let's not have that happen again. Internal auditor. What does an internal auditor do? We met her last week, but I don't know what they do. New police chief. We need to meet him one of these days. I understand he's going to start in March. What? He's right there? Well, I haven't met him yet. So we should all meet him. Oh, I have something else. But it's too long for this. Too long for that. I can't get into that. So I'll give it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Lloyd Brown, James Elder, Margaret Shepherd.
You know, I see all these programs that you're trying to deal with, the conditions that are going on in this city. I mean, you know, you can deal with the conditions, but you're gonna have to find the cause of these conditions you're gonna have to deal with, or they're gonna go on and on. I mean, just to keep, like, okay, the program the girl talking about giving money out. I mean, I know many people who can use this money, just like Ms. Brim said. But it's like, what I figure, you got your picks and your choices, or whoever you want. And then another thing I gotta say is, I came into a community, I don't know, not redevelopment, but zoning and whatever, and I saw one of the individuals in here in that meeting who has property in Riviera Beach, and he's on the council in Riviera Beach, but he's up to the front of the podium talking to one of the individuals that are in that planning and zoning board, and I don't trust them. I mean, and then I know it's a couple of individuals in here who agree and talk with each other. They like real good friends. Don't we have a sunshine law? I mean, I think, and they can't tell me, they couldn't look me straight in the face and tell me that they don't talk about things that go on, they don't agree outside this place. And that's because that's bull. You can tell just by their attitudes. I mean, I'm 65, and let me tell you something. I done seen a lot of different people. I done met a whole bunch of different people. And I could look at you people and tell that you know, I wouldn't trust you. And I'm not saying everybody up there, but I mean, honestly, I wouldn't trust you. I think an individual that come in a planning and zoning meeting should not own property in these areas where they're doing this planning and zoning. I think that's a conflict of interest. But then I had some guy to come to me and say, well, it's open to the public. Yeah, that's okay. But the public don't get up and go to the front and discuss anything that's going on in that meeting with those planning and zoning people, because you wouldn't have a bunch of jurors sitting in the back and you got here the public defender, and then you got the whatever they call it, the state attorney sitting over them waiting on them, you know, and walking up to them, talking to them. That's not right. That's a conflict of interest. So I'm saying, I don't think an individual who owns property in Riviera Beach should be in any of those planning and zoning boards, especially if they're on the council. Because I do think that's a conflict of interest, and I wouldn't trust these people as far as I can throw them. So, honestly, I don't think it's right. And another thing I say, I met an officer, and I'm going to say this right quick. We got a new chief. I think, sir, you need to deal with these people, community relationship, because I ran into an officer who was about to jump on my neighbor because her dog was taken and she was walking. She was 84 years old. And this officer was going to arrest me because I had concerns about my neighbor. So I wish I can talk to the chief whenever he get a time.
Thank you.
But not right now, I'm going to watch that.
James Elder, Margaret Shepherd, Mr. Willie Millsap.
Good evening. James Elder. Let's see. I live in Lone Pine Estates. Next month will be 36 years I bought that house, and I've lived there continuously. It's on the golf course. It's a golf course community, as you all probably know. It's been up for sale the last few years. It's a private entity owner, I believe, that is, it has it on the market for sale. My interest in it is to keep it a golf course, of course, maybe a little selfish, but I believe it could be cash positive, revenue positive. If I did a quick look on Google to see if there was a listing price for it, I could not find it, but perhaps as a buyer, you would get look at the books and see if it is cash positive, if there's enough revenue coming in to pay for it, and it may be something that the city would want to have a municipal golf course, I'm just putting it out there to let you guys think about it. Maybe somebody have do a little research and look into it and see if it's something that the city would like to do. I know junior golf is a big thing, as in the swimming lessons and stuff. There would be a lot of monies that could come in for junior golf. Being on there and watching it, to me, there's a lot of people that walk the course, older people that walk it, but I just think it's an opportunity to have a municipal golf course. And I'd like to see somebody do a little research and see if it's feasible that the city could do it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret Shepherd, Mr. Willie Millsap, Evelyn Clark.
Margaret Shepherd, Riviera Beach, to the Honorable Mayor and the City Manager, and to everyone in their respectful places. I am definitely back. I'm definitely back. As I was sitting there listening to the television, Channel 18, I have a couple of concerns. But Mr. Evans, I remember when you first came back, you said, if you need me, call me, I'll come to you. And, I do have a great concern. Southside Coalition, the Concerned Mothers. They're out there every Thursday from 6 to 7. And it's anyway from 80 to 90 children. And during Miss Pardo's time, she had the fire department come out and they got toys. I mean, they had toys galore. And the children, they never saw a fire truck and they were screaming and yelling. They had to calm them down. They had Santa Claus. But they are the forgotten children. They are the forgotten chosen children. And I think someone need to go. Miss Dawson is very hurt. She's a very proud woman. And the last time I was over there, honestly, it was cold and I could not walk. The Brooks Center was built in behalf of them. When they went to Cedric Thomas, Mr. Guyton came in and he put in money just so Mrs. Dawson and that group could sit in that building. They don't sit in that building. The name was not supposed to be Brookside. I can't think of the name, but Miss Dawson, that building was built for those children. If you go to every Thursday, it's like clockwork. Those children come there. That's the only meal they probably get because they don't give them peanut butter and jelly. They give them fried chicken. They give them meatloaf, meatballs, cake, vegetables, salad, and a bread. This is a good meal that they get. So right now you're talking about community benefits. They don't have a 501c3 because back in the day, they were afraid of how people was siphoning money out of it. So they're up in age now. But Mr. Evans, I think that you need to kind of meet with Miss Dawson. I think she deserves this. And they're not bums. Miss Dawson is a nurse. Miss Park, she's a nurse. You have Miss Jones, she's a teacher. Mrs. Matthews, she's a teacher. These are women that give their time and their money. They deserve it. They deserve it. And one more thing, as my time is moving on, I want to say to you, Trodrick, you're the most disrespectful person I have seen in a long time. You're just an idiot. Mr. Evans is quite intelligent. I might not like what he says or does as far as the money, but you're disrespectful. He is the city manager, and I don't like how you speak to him. I don't not. If you have a problem with him, I will go in the office and get it out. But you have no reason to sit there and talk to them. You're just a full-blown idiot. I really don't have no respect for you. I am back, Trodrick, because I know who you are.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd.
Mr. Millsap, Evelyn Clark, Reverend Burrs.
Good evening. Mr. Millsap, 562 West 6th Street, Riviera Beach. I'd like to talk to each one of you about something pertaining the west side of the tracks that y'all don't consider. We are second-rate citizens on that side, it seems like. All the events that you put up in the city of Riviera, you put them east of the tracks, east of US 1. We are citizens of this city. We are taxpayers. We are the residents here that looks beyond our beliefs. You have portraits of a picture hanging on the wall right there. You're showing the city of Riviera Beach. Show me where the railroad tracks at, where my house is at, and I've been in it 42 years. Show me anything that you have on the walls in this city complex, anywhere, that shows anything west of the tracks for us. You know, I realize that y'all don't give us no respect in that sense of the word of doing anything for us over there. I asked the council a few times, why do we live in this city and we cannot spend our money here? But y'all got a sign out there that says the best place to work, live, and play. But each individual that works for the city have to go out the city to buy their grocery, to purchase their clothes, their automobiles, or anything else they want because the city doesn't have anything to offer them. Why? Pleasant City has outgrown the city of Riviera Beach. Kelsey City has outgrown the city of Riviera Beach. And I've talked to my council person and asked them to talk to me, to call me. I talked to my mayor about the train horn. He did not get back with me. Has my phone been disconnected? Not to my knowledge, because I'm still paying the bill. But why do y'all consider us a second-rate citizen? Avenue O, off of Blue Heron, you have to drive down through that as if though you're going through an obstacle course because of the drains and stuff up out of the ground. And how long it's been like that? Y'all should know because y'all went out and got the contractors to build it, to do it, to work over there. You got slanted roads on that side of the tracks, but you got smooth roads on this side. You got grass growing over there. I got a citation for my lawn, and I've been complaining to the city about the corner of Martin Luther King and Barack Obama on 7th Street for how long? Since the last hurricane we had, nobody's took time out to clean it up or do anything about it. But have y'all written the state and told them that you're gonna charge them $250, the same as you did me? We don't even have a bus stop, a bus bench in the city of Riviera Beach for the individuals that catch buses, not me. You don't have a road map out there on the side of 95 that's saying we have anything here that you can get off and visit to. Nothing. All y'all doing is just being here. There's a place out on Military Trail that's opened up. Why don't y'all advertise that? Say, bring somebody in to build something out there so the residents can have some place to spend their money here. We got to spend all our money outside of this city. And we complain to y'all, y'all don't even address it. My phone number is still the same, and nobody's taught me, but I've seen each one of y'all at one time or another outside this city eating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evelyn Clark, Reverend Burrs, Amon Israel.
Good evening, Council. I have some good news. We have wonderful people here in our city, especially staff, so I like to give them their roses while they are still doing a good job for our city. So I want to give another You Make a Difference award to Mr. Arthur Johnson. Let me tell you, this gentleman, when he is going to the post office, when he is going to the grocery store, or when he's stepping out to get fresh air, he is driving around the city of Riviera Beach looking for heaps of trash so he can call Public Works to come and get that and keep this city clean. So kudos to Mr. Arthur Johnson. He's a keeper. Who else is a keeper is Malcolm Salmons. He's right behind Mr. Johnson. And they coordinate together to find these heaps of garbage and keep this city clean. So Mr. Malcolm Salmons, he's a keeper as well. Let's see. I want to give You Make a Difference Award to Public Works because they helped Mr. Salmons and they helped Mr. Johnson. And also, too, we have, I think, one of the best police departments around. So they really came to my assistant to catch some criminals, and they're still working on that case. So I want to recognize again Riviera Beach Police Department for a job well done. And also, too, I'd like to say to Mr. Lawson, Mr. McCoy, the city manager, and to the mayor, I'm proud to see young black men up on the dais doing your civil duty, trying to make a difference in our city, giving up your time, and just doing a good job. If I have a difference of opinion about you, I hope I'm woman enough to pull you aside, do it on the side in public, and let us have our discourse. And I hope you would give me that same courtesy. I try to build people up. I don't want to pull anybody down. I've seen that happen my entire life. So I want you to continue to do what you do because I've seen over the 5 years that I've been here how our black men have been torn down by our residents. I want to lift you up because I want the other young men to come behind you and do what you do. And I want you to encourage them, continue to do what you do because you're professional, you're polished, you're educated, you're trying really hard, and you're taking time away from your family, and I know that's really hard. So I will never tear you down. I will build you up. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Reverend Burrs, Amon Israel, J.B. Dixon.
Good evening, Council. I just want to take a few moments to thank Mr. Lawson and the assistant city manager, and the police chief just got here, met with us this Saturday at our meeting out in the park, and we thank Ms. Lanier. She had a funeral, and we thank her for letting us know that she wouldn't be able to come. But I think, if I remember correctly, I asked everybody to come, and only Mr. Lawson came, and I don't know why anyone else wouldn't come because it's a very pregnant meeting for that for the homeowners association out there in Long Pine. And the assistant city manager, let me clear one thing. She was newly here, I understand, and she's mentioned in her comments about the golf park. I guess because it was meeting in the park and talking about the golf course, she got the two kind of mixed up. The golf course and the park is two different entities. So, but both of them was pregnant information. And Mr. City Manager and the Mayor, we like for you all to come and meet with us sometime. And citizens would don't want to just sit at home and look at you on television. They want you to come and meet them personally. Like the gentleman was saying here earlier from Long Pine High residents, that he got a lot of information, a lot of concerns that we like to confront with you all. And like he was, one person in the meeting asked, how do you get on the agenda? I couldn't tell him, as long as I've been with the city, because it's changed so much, how you apply to get on the agenda, discuss your issues. But again, we definitely want to thank Mr. Lawson for being there, and the assistant city management, Noah, and the assistant and the police chief just came to town, and thank God that he came along. And I think I saw one of the fire department trucks there as well, showing some concern for the residents of Long Pine. Like Ms. Sapp just said, we on this side, and don't think that we are offering children's. We are citizens paying taxes as well. So we want you to take the time to come. And I think I did say that if it rained, that the meeting would be the next Saturday. Now, we cannot predict the weather, but the president, when it rained early that morning, he assumed that it was going to continue to rain, but it did clear up before 12, and at that time he had canceled the meeting. So but we thank those who did come. So we want to share this with you, as the gentleman was saying earlier from Long Pound. There's a lot of concern. That's like I mentioned in came in the first time, that we like to meet with the finance department, human resource department, the recreation department, and the code enforcement, because all of these entities will play a part in whatever happened in that golf course. We're hoping that it doesn't sell. Hope it remain as a golf course. But yet, besides that, we ask for y'all to come out to meet with us anytime you feel like, because we meet every second Tuesday at the fire station just north of Blue Heron Boulevard at 7 p.m. Feel free to come. You just show up, and we'll be glad to hear and see you when you show up. Every second Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. at the fire station.
Reverend Burrows, I'm sorry. I came out to Lone Pine that Saturday morning, and there was no one there. There was a sign that said the meeting was canceled. No one called to say it was canceled. I called you because I didn't know whether the meeting was canceled or postponed or what, and I never did get a call back. So just be aware that when one cancels a meeting and expects people to be there, it would be appropriate to make an announcement that the meeting is canceled, and so that we know. I would have been happy to come had I not been out of town.
Okay, we apologize if that be the case, but the president did say after it rained early that morning, we know, but then it did stop before 12 o'clock. But he had called, I thought he said he called the city manager, someone in the city,
Maybe
and told him that it was canceled. But if you didn't get the message, we do apologize for that, because for that instance.
And Madam Chair, we didn't get the message either. We just know it was canceled the Saturday before. We didn't even know it was the next Saturday. So we didn't get that information.
He did say, well, we do apologize, because he's supposed to had called someone in the city and let them know that it was canceled. And if it was canceled, I assume that y'all knew that it was going to be the next Saturday. So if you didn't get the message, it's not your fault. We apologize for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amon Israel, J.B. Dixon, Doretta Polk.
Good evening, Council, Chair, Mayor, Council, Amon Israel, Riviera Beach, Florida, the Monroe Heights area where the slanted streets are. I'm here to announce that the Elks are having their annual oratorical on the 22nd of March. This is an oratorical. We have 4 contestants, and they're going to be competing for a $10,000 scholarship. We expect whoever wins the local will go all the way to the national and win the national, thus winning the $10,000. The students that we're working with, they are really incredible. It's been a pleasure working with them. Some of the students are 12th graders, but they are full-time college students already. One will probably have their 2-year degree when he graduates from high school. So there are some incredible students. All of them except for one attend Riviera Beach schools. The one that don't attend a Riviera Beach school, he lives in Riviera Beach. But it's some outstanding students, and we like to invite the Riviera Beach community to come out March the 22nd. That's at 3 p.m. at Jay's Ministry. About a month after that, we'll be having the district. A month after that, we'll be going to the state, the regional, and then the national. But there are just some incredible students. A lot of times we hear the negative sides of students, but we have 2 outstanding ladies, 2 outstanding men that's extremely coachable, and just some of the best students that I've seen. So you're free to come out. It's a donation of $10. That's to help with the scholarships, etc. But there are students in Riviera Beach that are doing some incredible things. Thank you so much.
J.B. Dixon, Doretta Polk, Dolores Williams.
J.B. Dixon, 3000 North Ocean Drive, Singer Island in Riviera Beach. I would like to comment and congratulate Ms. Noel, who gave an excellent presentation as long as she was allowed to. And I would have liked to have heard the rest of that presentation, because the public, although they can come to a workshop, cannot comment. And if we had been able to hear the rest of her recommendations, we might have been able to comment on them. I think that was inappropriate to interrupt a speaker ever in the middle of a presentation. In terms of the community benefits thing, I know it's very controversial. Everyone has their own opinion about that. In my career, community relations was one of the relations under public relations that this Fortune 100 company that I worked for had, and therefore I had those kinds of procedures in place. When I first heard, those kind of procedures in terms of who applies and how the decisions are made, et cetera, I think, as far as I was able to see, she was really going down that path of having procedures. And it probably is good to wait until the next grant time to put them in place. But one of the things that you may not understand is that companies who do business in various communities usually have, under community relations, a giving program because they are a presence in that community. Their employees live in that community. So I take exception to somebody saying that that's called pay for play. And it may very well be that it is better administratively to give that, to say to them, don't give us this administrative burden, but I can almost assure you that they will still give money to the community in one way or another. When I first heard about it, I thought that their way of doing it was great, because rather than a corporation sitting there and judging what a community needs, they were saying the elected representatives of the people should decide that. And that sounded really good to me. But then, of course, I saw where some of the money was going, and I didn't think it was such a great idea. I think in terms of Ms. Lanier's point about these struggling nonprofits, many nonprofits do not deserve to exist because they are very badly run, and they are very bad stewards of money, and that's one of the reasons why many of them are broke. And so I think looking at the financial stewardship, and of course helping, as one of the recent workshops did, helping them be better is a good idea.
Thank you.
Doretta Polk, Dolores Williams, Mary Brand.
Good evening. My name is Doretta Polk, and I want to mention I have a couple of neighbors that live on Avenue H, and I live on 20th, so we right across, and they're very concerned, just as the gentleman was saying about the trains. And I was up, and I was listening to it. Those trains come in 4 different times in the morning, around 12:30, around 1:30, 3:30, and 4:30. Those engineers are on that horn, and it's steadily on that horn. Release, going back. 4 different times coming through our city. That is wrong. And I know Ms. Chairperson mentioned it last meeting, and please look into that. The entire board, look into that. That is very much a disturbance. And a couple of my neighbors have insomnia, and they're not sleeping well. And we're generally, at that area, we are little senior citizens. And if that can be looked at, because something needs to be done about that. Another thing, the lift station on Avenue H in Part 20, the stench is horrible. We are breathing in its toxin, and I guess they fix it for a little while, and then they say the snowbirds come in, and it draws more of a power situation that they can't, handle. But this needs to be taken care of, because this is a very health situation that we're going through, breathing those toxins in. And who knows, it could be cancerous. So please look into that, because no one should breathe that type of stench. No one. It's not good for our health at all and our well-being. Another thing, heads off to Councilwoman Lanier concerning the last meeting when you said that we need the table, and it was tabled or postponed. The agent came up here wanting to build on Solatron, and he even said he didn't realize soil was involved in it, was contamination. Now, somebody's not doing their due diligence and, looking into this when people come and want to bring this to our city. This is very hazardous, and I thank you for getting an outside entity to come in and see it concerning this. That has no bias, because we need this. And thank you for looking into that and doing that, taking care of us. Very responsible. This young lady, very responsible, because this probably would have passed if you didn't bring up that situation with the soil. He says just water, water, but it's the soil too. And all this is totally cleared up. Nothing should ever be built on that site. We already have problems with our water as it is. Nothing should be built on that site.
Thank you, Ms.
And I thank you.
Dolores Williams, Mary Brown.
Good evening to the board and to our citizens of Riviera Beach and all those that watch Channel 18. I want you to listen to me, people outside this forum here. The man that came up and spoke about the west side, I agree with him on it. The man that spoke about on the west side, I agree with him, every word he said. Because I'm going through the city, getting the people on the west side to sign a petition, and we want to meet with the CRA and how this is run, that the funds come through from the east side and not on the west side. I want to bring back up, they were talking about that water thing on Blue Hill, and I give you kudos too, Ms. Lanier, because I couldn't get up there to speak about that, because they had a meeting and to put anything over there. My Reverend Bowens and my family members, they say a lot of people are sick because the stuff is running up in Monroe Heights. So it should be nothing there. I know you might be done purchase as city manager or something y'all was gonna do. One say they're gonna build over the cement and then they're gonna drill there. Well, it's not profitable for us to build anything. I don't know what you're trying to put, the water plant, whatever. Capital N, capital O, exclamation mark, no. And the solid waste management, I brought that up to y'all before. Y'all put most of the citizens out of work here by going with this solid waste. They come and paint your house if you ask them. But then if they're going to give you our money back, what good is that doing to us? I want to meet with the CRA. I want to understand this, because I'm really serious about the CRA in the west side. They told me they couldn't do nothing, and I want to get it straightened out. I was told by someone, and I've been called this one, that I need to ask one of the councils to bring this up, to have, as they call that, the mandra, where the Republican fixed it so they can win all the votes. I need a council to bring up this section that they put up about 30 or 40 years ago to beautify what part of the city want. They say the east side. Time out, you're striked out, it's time to move to the west side. I want, Mr. Lawson, will you look into that and start that for me? If not, I just have to look up for it myself. And Ms. Wynn, I appreciate her. You got somebody in your office that will try to destroy you. But this man was back at court again that say he worked with your office. I don't think he worked with your office. He was so, Margaret Shepherd called somebody dumb, but he was just illiterate. The judge kept asking him, who you? He jumped on other people's cases and they're trying to settle. Y'all need to check on this man. He came in, the judge ruled for my niece. Y'all need to check on that.
Mary Brown.
here at Brand Riviera Beach. The community benefits, you all have given out our taxpayer dollars monies. $2,000, $1,500, $1,000, $800, and $900. And you don't want it to, and you don't want we as residents to hold you all accountable for it, but we will. The soccer, youth, sign up for the soccer. We've always said that it's more than just football and basketball in this city here. So the Parks and Rec Department is asking, all of the youth, it's a certain age, I think they would go up to 12 years to engage in those type of activities. And to the teachers of this city here, your schools, you have your children every day. You teach them, and you also should encourage them more about this city too, to be partakers, getting involved in the activities that the city has to offer for our children as well. See, we don't want you abusing our children. We want you to love them, nurture them, and let them know that they are a part of this community. So engage the students more than just you teaching them, because when you teach them good ethics and good principles and characters, it goes a long way in their lives as well. The census here. Residents, count everyone under your roof. It doesn't matter whether you're a renter, you're a boarder, you're a stakeholder. There are billions of dollars in this city, in Riviera Beach. We have lost out tremendously. It does not matter where you live at, under whatever roof. Sign up. It's education money. It's health money. It's a lot of money at stake here for you as residents and citizens in this city here. I totally agree with the picture here. I know this is all a marketing part, but also maybe a whole sky camp, a whole picture footage of your whole entire city. We have to do marketing, and a lot of times with marketing, we pulled out the most greatest assets of our communities. But we also, too, can make an overall view of just our entire city that will show that part as well. Because a lot of times it does bring conflict within conflict. So we all are a part. Everybody does not live on the waterfront. So I think that is something to be taken into consideration about. And the chair, think amongst you yourselves to get a good chair and a vice chair that can make our meetings flow. We do not want our meetings to be labored. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that concludes.
Yes, would you please?
Madam Chair and members of the board, based on some of the comments that were articulated by the residents, with respect to the expense report, we're in the process of rolling out a new website. So once we do that, that's when we will populate a lot of the information that Ms. Larson was communicating. Signage, as it relates to the sign, we have talked to a vendor, and we're in the process of solidifying that here shortly. Internal auditor. The internal auditor's function is to audit internal operations and to look at efficiencies and better business practices. They work and report directly to the manager, but earlier we spoke about them working with the audit committee. So just more transparency in government. Our chief of police, who is in the back of the room, Mr. Osgood, is here, and he's been with us since February 24th, but his official swearing-in day is March 12th. So there will be information that will go out to the community, inviting everyone to see the ceremonial swearing-in of our police chief. And he's very responsive. He's all over the community, so if you haven't had the opportunity to meet him, certainly would encourage you to take the chance and sit down and hear the vision that he has for our law enforcement agency. With regards to the Long Pine conversation, staff did provide some information to me about the residents' input concerning a municipal golf course. Before we would ever conceivably move in that direction, I would certainly encourage the board to obviously take a look at the cost for the asset, but then undertake a feasibility study, because municipal golf courses usually do not turn a profit, and they become a big cost for the agency as it relates to the maintenance and upkeep. And I believe that particular parcel is well over 66 acres, so it is substantially bigger than any parcel that the city currently operates. With regards to the Southside Coalition of Concerned Mothers, I will make it a point to go out to one of their events and speak with the individuals and see about ways that we can assist and facilitate anything to bring our community together and to make sure that the young people have an opportunity to interact with multiple city departments and offices. As it relates to the comments on some of the projects on what would be called the west side of the community, there's a couple of projects, I think sizable projects, that we would like to have some more discussions with the board. Right now, they're in the internal phases of discussions with staff, and we're looking about the feasibility of moving some operations that gives us a more prominent presence in the west side of our community. And so that's something that we certainly will look to expand upon. The meeting as it relates to Long Pine at the fire station, I'll make it a point to put it on my calendar and attend one of their meetings and brief them on certain city operations. There was a lot of conversations and comments, and the chair has provided information with regards to the trains in our community. And certainly we understand that that is certainly a nuisance and an issue, and we do want to bring that to a regular meeting for a presentation for the board to consider, because there is substantial cost associated with it to effectively move forward with a quiet zone, because what those rail agencies will tell you is that their railroad tracks were down before any communities were plotted and homes were developed in that area. So if you're going to make the modifications to turn it a quiet zone, then you as the city or the government entity bear the cost associated with that. And some of those intersections can cost anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 per intersection. So we do want to have the conversation with the board to explore all options to see if there's some minimalistic things that we can do to cure that issue. But this is a problem that I've had to deal with in multiple government agencies. And being that the railroad tracks in a lot of communities were the way commerce was conducted in this state and across the nation, and when you look at how the land was plotted, that those tracks were there before most people settled that area. So as we've continued to develop, they've been quite problematic and have restricted the access to our community, even to the point where when there's certain times where the train does stop, there's a public safety concern, and we're certainly mindful of that. About the CRA board, or CRA boundaries. The CRA boundaries, that was established by the city of Riviera Beach and the county. In order to expand the board or the boundaries, then you have to go through a pretty arduous process. The CRA cannot expend monies outside of its boundaries. So if there is projects or issues or concerns that the residents have outside of the CRA boundaries, those would be projects that the city of Riviera Beach should be the responsible entity. So we would ask to have conversations with the residents to really identify what are some of those areas of concern. And then lastly, with respect to the 2020 census, the speaker said that there's billions of dollars. There's actually trillions of dollars. We anticipate that over the next 10 years, $4 trillion will be appropriated associated with the census. And the city of Riviera Beach over the last 10 years has received approximately 1.9, close to $2 million. And that's because of our count. We're not an entitled city because our count is not over 50,000. If we were over 50,000, then we could be an entitled city to receive community development funds, CDBG funds. directly right now. The county receives that money and then remits that to the city. But one of the things that we can certainly do, and I would encourage the policymakers and members of the community to urge the Board of County Commissioners to consider providing a larger allotment of those CDBG funds to the city of Riviera Beach for certain projects and certain areas in our community that can benefit from substantial investment. So it is so important that you participate in the census process. This year is the first year that you'll be able to do it electronically. So if you can do it on a mobile device or computer. If not, the other option that they have is you can call on the phone and there will be someone that will take your information on phone. Then they will do the mail. If they do not receive any information from you through those mediums, then they will actually canvass the neighborhoods and then make sure that people are counted. For our folks that are not here with us year round, we certainly encourage you to fill out your census here versus wherever home may be, because wherever you are, when you complete that information, that's where you're counted. So we are going to be sending information out to the community about the census, about the community value survey, and about the State of the City address. And that concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, we're now on to item number 11. On behalf of Councilperson Lawson, RM Public Places Program, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed. Madam Chair, do you want me to accept this card?
Yes, she was right there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, colleagues and residents, we've heard a lot of the concerns with addressing the east side and the west side and the CRA boundaries. So what we've noticed is traveling throughout the country to these different conferences and seeing what local and other municipalities are doing is they have an Arts and Public Places program, which is really addressing some of the beautification of our community. We want to do our very best to beautify the entire community, not just our CRA district. We want to acknowledge all the concerns and issues. If you look at our surrounding municipalities, they're beautifying their downtown districts, their municipal parks, their city neighborhoods. And I want us to take that same approach, using the policy making that we have as leaders here in this community to implement a program that's going to affect the next 20 and 30 years of our community. So I'm honored to allow for a homegrown young man to actually be able to present this presentation. Mr. Jackson is going to give the presentation on behalf of this program.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Chair, members of council, City Manager Evans, and residents of Riviera Beach. The item before you is a proposal to create an Art and Public Places program for the city, a program that will not be administered by the legislative body. It will be administered through the city. So this issue originally came up during CRA meetings held on July 10th and November 13th of 2019 by members of the commission and concerns expressed from the public. Comments such as selection of mural projects, recurring maintenance costs, determination of placement, selection of artists, and project design, to name a few, were discussed. To date, the CRA has completed and installed 9 mural projects within the district. The agency's public art and branding project, round 1, had an estimated cost of about $133,000, and round 2 has an estimated cost of $132,000. This program seeks to expand upon the successful efforts made by the CRA and address public art through a comprehensive and collaborative approach citywide. It is important to note that the agency recently received global recognition in 2019 from the Florida Redevelopment Association for the mural projects located within the Marina Village. Currently, there is no umbrella policy in place which requires development projects to contribute to the city's cultural infrastructure. The primary goal of the Art in Public Places program is to establish a program for the integration of arts into both public and private development projects throughout the city of Riviera Beach. The program will visually and live in the city, illuminate the city's history, diversity, and culture, and foster economic development. This goal will be achieved through acquiring, exhibiting, and maintaining public art for public consumption in public spaces. Right out of the budget book, it states that Riviera Beach 2030 is a forward and progressive thinking agenda that addresses the challenges that the city faces today, the opportunities that lie ahead, and how it can deviate from the status quo. And we believe that this program will attempt to accomplish 2 or 3 of those priorities established by the mayor and council at his retreat back in 2019, to strengthen community engagement, build great neighborhoods, and achieve a sustainable economy. Since the beginning of human civilization, art has played an integral role and is constantly evolving. You see, public art is not an art form. Its size can be huge or small. It can tower 30 feet or seek the attention of the ground beneath your feet. It may be cast, built, assembled, or painted. What distinguishes public art is the unique association of how it's made, where it is, and what it means. And here are some examples. There are a number of municipalities, both locally and nationally, which have such art infrastructure programs, over 60 in the state of Florida. It would be in the best interest of the city to create a program that is uniquely tailored to the diverse culture of our community fabric. Communities such as West Palm Beach Gardens, Boynton Beach, Lake Worth, Palm Beach County, Delray Beach, Coral Springs, and the city of Largo, a community where City Manager Evans previously served. And Mr. Manager, if you care to opine further on the key elements that was contained in Largo's ordinance, that'd be great.
Certainly. To this particular topic, I had the fortunate opportunity as the assistant to the city manager to work on a public arts ordinance. But when the city council was having the discussion, it was more so about placemaking, to create a sense of community, a sense of place that when you walked into your quintessential government facility, it had character to it. The city wanted to effectively lead by example, so what the city did is they put in place funding mechanisms that would help spur the growth of the public art in public places. And so what would happen is a portion of the capital dollars associated with public facilities would be set aside, and it would be a fraction of a percentage not to exceed X amount of dollars. And that would be utilized to spruce up your entryways, your common areas, your parks, your parking structures, crosswalks. And what we saw by implementing that, there was private sector involvement, and it assisted in creating a sense of community and a sense of pride. And it really allowed for the community to look at things in a transformational way, to the point where even now, in their comprehensive plan amendments, they have emphasized the importance of placemaking, especially within their downtown core. And I think as we go into other communities here in Palm Beach County, and you look at West Palm and what they've done with the parking garages, and even some communities have utilized some decorative improvements on parking structures to really have them blend into the surrounding area. Actually, Disney World, the biggest developer in the world, over at their Disney Springs investment, their parking garages all have hanging gardens. So it adds a unique element to the community. And so this particular item, how we choose to move forward, can be looked at multiple multiple ways. You can look at it as a situation that we as a city can adopt an ordinance that says we would set aside a portion of monies associated with capital projects. You can also look to create a way by looking at a fee structure that says a portion of this fee would go for the purposes of providing grants for enhancements to the facades of private sector businesses. And when I say that, it would be the facade or common areas that the public conceivably can see or access. It couldn't be something whereby Jonathan in his business makes improvements in the lobby or into the break room for the employees. It has to be a benefit for the public to be able to do this. So there is multiple ways to effectively do that. But if you look at these communities, and I think that's what's very important, is these communities have probably experienced the largest growth in taxable value when you look at cities across the country. Palm Beach Gardens was rated the #1 community in the state of Florida to live. West Palm Beach and Palm Beach Gardens have both got over $3 billion worth of economic investment happening. One of the other communities that's not on that list is Sarasota and Sarasota County. That is, economic pace is past where it was prior to the recession and is known for the arts. So adding those particular elements to creating those sense of place and that destination provides for some value. And so the intent behind this presentation obviously is to start the conversation and then come back with some public policy recommendations for the board to consider. And there's a lot of research I can tell you that Councilman Lawson and Mr. Jackson have put into this particular matter, but there is a value to looking at it through a different lens. Even the other side of it is having a art committee that has a professional artist to help facilitate, to ensure that you're putting quality projects in the ground and that they're representing what the collective vision is of the community, because art is so subjective. In Largo, we created an art committee that was chaired by a professional artist that we did in fact pay, but there was capital investment that came as a result of the program, and it continues to this day, and now it is actually memorialized in their comprehensive plan. And I probably would argue that most of these cities have put placemaking in their comprehensive plan, which is basically, with the charter and the comp plan, is your Constitution and your Declaration of Independence. Basically, that's what those documents mean. So certainly it's something that I think should be discussed, and we are here to provide any additional insight and perspective from my experience and from the research that Mr. Jackson and Mr. Lawson have
Madam Chair,
worked on.
as we continue and actually introduce this program, this was something that was dear to Mr. Evans' heart, because he was very excited to see this progress and these steps, because he's seen municipalities be completely transformed with these arts and public places programs. Our neighboring cities, the development that's booming down in West Palm right now and in Gardens, we want to try to duplicate some of the development that's happening while utilizing some of this program. So Mr. Jackson, if you want to just continue with going through some options so we can express some funding mechanisms as well, and then discuss what we would recommend our staff to do if we'd like to move forward with something like this.
So some of the benefits associated with arts and public places, it fosters civic pride, it acknowledges our cultural history, attracts cultural tourism, enhances our physical environment, brands the city, creates a sense of place, reduces crime, saves money, and provides community involvement. The economic impact of arts and public places, it is estimated that the arts and culture industry has an annual impact of about $3 billion in the state of Florida, $345.3 million in Palm Beach County, and $15 million was generated for local governments based on studies in 2018. Funding for the program will be derived from fees collected for new development and/or remodeled projects. In the event a developer or project decide not to include artwork as part of a project's aesthetic design, a fee may be in lieu of artwork placement. So there, like Manager Evans said, there are a number of funding options that are available, and it will be beneficial for staff to determine what options should be used. So the recommendation from the Office of City Councilman Douglas Lawson is proposing City Council to direct the city manager and appropriate staff to develop viable options for an art in public places program within 60 days for council review and consideration, to include at a minimum the following: staff resources needed for such a program, branding for the program, potential locations, estimated annual cost for management, estimated annual cost for maintenance, program development and rollout timeline, and potential revenue. And at this time, we have any questions?
Public comment? We go to public comment first?
Yeah,
Or-
public comment. Do we have public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have public comments.
We'll have public comments first then.
Bonnie Larson, Evelyn Clark, Mary Bram.
Bonnie Larson, Artistic Projects. You've got my attention 100%. I'm very interested in art, as everyone knows. And, but I have to tell you a little history on this. The Art in Public Places, that came up several years ago. It was Jeff Gagnon, and he presented it, and every new development or places they were working on had to contribute to that. That came up, then it kind of like dissipated, it went away. Then not too long ago, he brought it up again. So where is all that research and where is all that? If we're going to have art in public places, I've seen some of them which are good, some of them are not so good. I love the butterflies on, I think it's on PGA Boulevard. They're colorful and they twirl around very slowly. Not so crazy about that bridge in Palm Beach Gardens, where the artist kind of forgot that they were going to be an outdoor exhibit, and so they had to be taken down a couple years ago and redone because they were made out of something which, you know, the elements just didn't protect them. So we need to be cautious about this. Also, I'd like to say that whatever we put up eventually, be something that's generic, not ethnic, because we have residents here of all ethnicities. We have residents, snowbirds who come down. We want everybody to be comfortable. No statues of particular people or things like that, but something generic, and it can be very good. If you've ever been down to Coconut Grove, you've seen what they have. A little offbeat. Some people don't like it. Some people love it. I happen to love it. But they have a lot of things, and they're generic. It's statues, not statues of people, but gosh, I wish I had a picture of it. But a lot of good ideas coming from there, and I'm just wondering, like, what happened to that? What happened to those funds, which we collected years ago, and what happened to the funds we collected not so long ago? What happened to that money that we already had in an account such as this? So I'm all for it. But like I said, I'd like it to be a generic so that everybody will feel comfortable with it. Thank you.
Evelyn Clark, Mary Bram.
Just a little bit of background history. Miami-Dade County was the nation's first art in public places, a program of the Miami-Dade County Department of Cultural Affairs, which serves the community through implementation of art installations dedicated to enriching the public environment and to preserving and enhancing the artistic and civic pride of Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade Art in Public Places program promotes collaboration and creative art projects that improve the visual quality of public places. These public art installations transform public places from ordinary civic areas to sites that can lift the spirit and connect the community, which is a goal of mental healing by Councilperson Lawson. The objective, invoke creative problem solving through innovative collaborative projects that result in validation, definition, and expanded community identity. The goal of art in public places is to exhibit visual art that is compatible and will enhance the architecture and general environment of the city. Our city can be an official Mecca collection of work from local, regional, and national artists. The art in public places could include photography, murals, mosaics, sculptures, and street furniture. furnishings. The City of Riviera Beach has an opportunity to continue contributing positively to our city's evolving and vibrant urban landscape with art and public places. Just mirror the Art and Public Places program ordinance that we see in so many municipalities, and which was also presented eloquently by Mr. Javarius Jackson. Perhaps Riviera Beach can bring back the cultural board for art and public places and offer internships coming from cities of Chicago, Atlanta, Delray Beach, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach. You see these great artifacts when you enter the city. It's great tourism. Just driving up Flagler Drive this past Sunday, my husband and I just stopped to look at the wonderful art that is in that city. And I would like to see that happen to Riviera Beach. I'm on board, especially because it does provide good uplifting of your spirit and great mental health. Thank you.
Mary Bram.
Miss Mary Brown, Riviera Beach. I'm for this program as well, but from my understanding, the funding will come from the CRA side with the new businesses, or, you know, is that correct before I? No. Okay. So I do agree that art can be subjective. So I know that previously, I went to a workshop twice when they was doing the murals. I did have some objections to some of that art that was there. So in looking at the presentation, what was presented here, we are a diverse city. And we are, when we say diverse, it should represent who we are and whose we are. So I do like this concept. But I just want to get away from all this football, you know, and all of that kind of stuff like that. It's okay in its proper realm. But if we are to be branded, we need to be branded for the diversities of our city, as well as our building complex as well, you know, because so many times we just throw this out to whoever can come in and splash a paint on the wall and stuff. So we want this professionally done, and I'm hoping that they get the artists in that really know how to do this, because a lot of times, you know, you come in and you just do not have that skill set and that pure professionalism that I can see that would depict what we are asking for you to bring to this city here, to rebrand us and to do a great job so that we can look good. When we look good, then that makes everybody look at us as knowing that we know who we are. When I made reference to marketing, it wasn't to take away anything from that intercoastal view, but also in our marketing. You know, I've been doing a little traveling too, so I've seen a lot of stuff, so just taking some time off. But you know, we have the Rapids here. We have one of the top-notch schools here, Suncoast. We have other well attractions here that the outsiders really don't know. That Rapids there brings in millions and millions of dollars, you know, a year for this city here. And not just the Rapids, but I would just like for you all to do a little out-of-the-box thinking, you know, in our marketing skills. You know, you can also incorporate all of this. We have that manatee, you know, park over there at the port and stuff, where the kids go over there as well as other visitors. So it is more to us than just water, but I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Madam Chair, that concludes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson, if you could come pull back up some of the examples. So colleagues, imagine if we had artwork, like for example, even though Ms. Bonnie Larson doesn't like the idea of a statue, we have an intersection of Barack Obama and MLK. Imagine having a statue of Barack Obama and MLK shaking hands. Imagine in our intercoastal, we having submerged statues when we have the #1 dive location in the world and having that as a tourist attraction? We'd have people from all over the world traveling to our city. Imagine the programs that we'd be able to fund utilizing the money that is actually coming from the developers who are coming to our community to beautify this community. We're trying to attract these businesses, so we have to give them reason to come here. Beautifying our thoroughpasses with coming off of Blue Heron, off of 95, coming off of Singer Island, coming up Barack Obama and MLK. These are things that we need to really focus on and beautify within our community. So I want us to really focus on creating a program that's going to benefit the next 20, 30 years of this community and beautify and transform this community. We're not Wynwood. We're not Northwood, we're Riviera Beach. So we don't want to do what they're doing in their community. We want to do what this community can actually benefit from by creating an actual board that's going to oversee the development of this program. So colleagues, I'd love for the support of this and instruct staff to move forward with creating a policy within the next 30 to 60 days.
Thank you. Ms. Lanier?
Yeah, I would just like to say, I do like this project, and I like the, if we can link this in terms of a fund, to new developers, contributing to this fund. Also, in a sense that it would be a competitive process, that we would focus on local Palm Beach County artists and not so much all national artists. And also, you know, being able to have something that the developers who come to this city can play a part in, and that means that they can fund these type of projects. Now, I know a lot of times they, in lieu of them doing it themselves, they actually contribute to a fund, and that would be something I would be interested in. I just don't want the taxpayers to be on the hook for it. I want it to be something that can be generated so that the people who come into the city to build in our city can fund this project.
Thank you.
Madam
Anything
Chair?
else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Let's not, and Doug, I love your idea, but let's not forget the Bahamian culture also. You know, you hear history about Bahamians really came over to Riviera Beach to founded it, but you never hear that history. So, you know, we have a great Bahamian population here. If we can include them also in some of the artwork, I think that'd be great.
Thank you. Anything else? Yeah.
Yes, so, Mr. Jackson or Mr. Lawson, I think it's a great idea. I just was concerned because I know I had a conversation with Mr. Evans last year sometimes about the amount of fees that new construction costs that the city just earns on, help me out, impact fees. So if we're looking to, and I think I heard you kind of reference like derived fees from portions of fee structures. So would that be modifying our current fee structure or basically adding an additional fee in addition to the current permitting?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Based upon what some of the other municipalities are doing, they've added on an additional 1%, 0.5% to 1% fee to the new development that comes into the community. So what we did is we actually asked Mr. Sherman to come up with numbers for us to see what additional tax that would be so this fund can actually be established. So it would be an additional tax of anywhere between 0.5% to 1% that we would add on to all new construction. And then we would ask staff to outline and determine if that's going to be based upon certain residential, commercial, if that's going to be based on a certain number of units. So creating the best policy. But Mr. Evans, you had a question?
And Councilman, to your point, some have also crafted the ordinance that allows for if a developer says, I would add artistic elements to my building and to the exterior and to the crosswalk, they have an opportunity to opt out of that with the understanding that they will make the improvements on their side as well in lieu of paying that. But if they didn't want to, they can contribute to that fund. And usually their contribution to the fund is lower than what they would spend themselves to do that. And so you had some situations where developers would say, you know, we believe in what's going on, but one of the things that's critically important in this is we as the city have to set the tone. If we don't lead and we don't embrace and start changing how we create those places and our parks and those types of things, it's hard to get that business community to buy into why should I pay more when you're effectively not leading by example. So I think it's important for us to look at our parks and our infrastructure and say, what things can we do today to really have this take hold and have the business community excited about it?
I'm hearing consensus from the council that this is something that we agreed that we should move forward on, and I think that we would ask staff to pursue this and to investigate the possibilities and come back with a proposal that we can vote on.
Yeah.
So thank you,
'Cause
Mr. Lawson. Thank you.
It's
Yes.
usually only about, I think that from my understanding, a lot of times it's only about $5 million that they put this surtax or extra tax to. It's not like somebody coming in with the $100,000
Right,
project
right.
and
So
you tax them.
Exactly. I think
Right.
staff needs to
Yeah,
come
usually-
back to us with a proposal that we can actually vote on. But I appreciate the work that you put into making this presentation, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Lawson, it was great of
Thank
you to
you.
bring this
And-
to our attention again. I know we did discuss this. Ms. Larson is right. I feel like deja vu. We've had this conversation. It was probably about a year and a half ago. And I also don't know what happened with it. So I'm glad that it's brought up again and we can pursue it. Yes.
So, Mr. Evans, I want to ask, in addition to the percentage of the, I guess, the derivative of the fee, you mentioned a portion of capital dollars? So-
Yes, yeah, there would be a portion of capital dollars for city projects that we would set aside, and so we would, and it would be a certain percentage not to exceed a dollar amount. So if we had a $50 million project, and let's say we put 1%, we wouldn't say, okay, the cap may be $500,000 with that $50 million project, and we would incorporate that in the overall design elements associated with the capital construction costs. But we'll tinker with some options and bring it forward.
Well, can you also bring back a possible option to allocate existing fees that we earn from code enforcement, since it goes directly back to, beautifying the community? I think, if we can use the allocation of those dollars.
And to your point, Councilman, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we have to look at our entire fee structure, because I also think we need to look at some type of fee for the acquisition of parkland or, green space as properties come available to the city. Do we effectively want to acquire parcels for looking at regional parks or looking at preservation of green space or providing for additional boat lifts or kayak launches, anything we can do to get folks out on the water in our community? As a beach community, we should really look at that. But I think our fee ordinance associated with that needs to be looked at. So we'll bring some options for the board to look at, but we'll hit on the arts element, but then look at other items that the board may want to consider as we have the discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank Councilman Lawson for bringing this forward. And, to tell you the truth, this is really something the Community Development Department should be bringing to the city council. But I appreciate the fact that he took the lead to bring it to us.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I just wanted to thank Mr. Jackson for all the research and the great presentation, and thank you for all the work that you're actually doing for the city as well, because these are the policies that we need to incorporate that's going to really affect our grandkids and our next generation. So thank you, Mr. Jackson. Excellent job.
Super 8. Thank you. Last item.
Item number 12, discussion of Riviera Beach Community Development Corporation donation request for 1052 West 30th Street, Riviera Beach, Florida. Madam Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Madam Chair, I'll begin with the presentation, and then Ms. Jenkins will assist in providing some additional comments concerning this item. The Riviera Beach Community Development Corporation has sent letters to city administration talking about the possibility of working with the city to effectuate something that is very important in our community, and that is workforce housing. One of the things that we have tried to do is to work with our partners to move forward to see some of these properties revitalized and ultimately be placed on the tax roll. A lot of the property that the city of Riviera Beach currently owns remains vacant. There's some situations where we have worked with partner entities to see some of these projects come out of the ground, and I had the opportunity to have an in-depth conversation with the CDC and Mr. Bullard and take a look at the phenomenal work that the individuals from the reentry program are doing at the home on First Street. And I think Mr. Bullard was being very modest with regards to the trades and the crafts and everything that they're learning, and the exceptional workmanship that is happening on that property. So in the conversations that I had with Ms. Jenkins, there was a property that was identified at 1052 West 30th Street that the city of Riviera Beach currently owns. That home is, in essence, shuttered. There's no activity that's occurring in that home. It basically is a shell. And so we thought that this may be an opportunity, if the board will indulge staff and the CDC, to consider the transfer of the city's rights on the property to the CDC for the purposes of moving this asset to move forward with the first-time home buyer program and having the reentry staff assist in bringing this property up to standards. We believe that this is a great opportunity. We believe that the CDC, based on the information that has been provided to us, has the wherewithal, the abilities to deliver this particular property. We would recommend that if the board wanted us to move forward in such a fashion, it would come back at your next regular meeting to effectuate the transfer, with the understanding that the city would have some type of restrictive covenants to ensure that the city's interests are protected and that they can deliver on the time frame that is articulated, and it is an asset that goes into the first-time homebuyer program. So without further ado, Ms. Jenkins is going to provide a presentation concerning this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Vice Chair Botel, council members, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to come and make this request in person. And I've had the privilege of working with the reentry program for the last more than 6 months on a particular property. And what Mr. Bullard did not mention is that we've also done about 10 smaller projects with the reentry program, working with code enforcement, doing beautification, painting, landscaping with a number of residents throughout the city. So I'd just like to give you a little information about the house on 30th Street. As Mr. Evans said, it's a stalled single-family residential project which the city of Riviera Beach currently owns. It was acquired in May 2008, and we believe for the intention of creating first-time homeownership. The CDC would be in a position to apply for a permit upon receipt of site control, and we believe that we could have this house completed within 150 days from permit and notice to proceed to the general contractor. And in this case, it would be the general contractor working with the reentry program. We'd be asking for expedited permitting, and the construction, the vertical improvements would be financed with dollars provided by the CDC. Our intent would be to sell it to a first-time home buyer who is a member of the Riviera Beach Home Buyers Club. And we do have a current wait list of pre-qualified buyers, and we always do affirmative marketing, and that was one of the questions that Mr. Evans asked, to city workers, first responders, and city residents, of course. The property would have a restrictive covenant, which we would negotiate and bring that back to the city. Here is an aerial view right off of President Barack Obama and 30th Street. It's several lots in, and you can see it outlined in red there on a single-family lot. We would do this under our neighborhood reclaimed workforce housing component. Currently, the house has an asphalt composition roof, and based on our inspection report, there are about 10 years of useful life left on the house. There is some damage to some of the shingles because it's been sitting for the last 10 or 11 years. There is some damage to windows, although most of the windows are covered. You can see there's overgrown vegetation, and there are some instances of wood destroying organisms or wood rot, which would be repaired, of course. Because it is basically a shell, the major systems were never completed. The interior was never completed, and the walls, ceilings, floors remain unfinished. And I believe in your backup, you have a copy of the inspection report that gives you some additional pictures and information. Riviera Beach CDC would issue a request for bids, which would include the reentry program. And we go through a formal process because depending upon the source of money that the buyer might receive, it might be federal funds, SHIP funds. We want to make sure that we've done all of the appropriate steps so that we widen the opportunity for different financing to participate in the project. As I said, we'd be ready to begin construction, and we could have it completed within 150 days after receiving a notice to proceed. Once completed, we would have a new family, senior, veteran, single-family unit, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, with a 1-car garage with 1,900 square feet on 0.15 acres. So it's a nice-sized house. We always put in impact-resistant windows and doors. There is a little backyard patio, which would be really cute on the back. There'd be custom cabinetry, a wired security system, energy-efficient appliances, lushly landscaped yard, and we would target and hope that we could bring it in to price at about $2.25. However, we'd sell it at appraised value, whatever that value is. And I thank you for your attention, and I'll take any questions.
Yes, Madam Chair. Bonnie Larson, Dolores Williams.
Bonnie Larson, when I looked at this item on the agenda, I looked at the photographs, and it was exactly as you said, Mr. Evans. It's a shell of a building. So I'm wondering about the history of this. Who owned this building? Why was it sitting there like that for 10 years? It's been sitting there for longer than that. But what happened that they only built the outside of it? Who owned it, and why did we buy it? So now you're talking about turning it over to the CDC. And the intent is to sell to a first-time homeowner from the club that Ms. Jenkins heads up. Now, what we heard last month was that most of the people in the Home Buyers Club are not residents of Riviera Beach. So what assurance would we have? Oh, well, that's what they said. You're nodding no. I heard it. But what assurance would we have that this would go to a Riviera Beach person who's in the club? And we say we'd sell it at market value. What would market value be? Because that's a big house, 1,900 square feet. But I'm just curious as to why was it only a shell built? And what's it going to cost to renovate it? I think she didn't say what it would cost to renovate it. But that's great that we would have the returning citizens working on it, give them some experience. But I'd really like to see it go to a Riviera Beach person. So if they're in the Home Buyers Club, rather than somebody from another city get it. But I'm just curious as to why that was only a shell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dolores Williams.
Again, I'm up here. Hello, Miss Botella. You doing all right? Being a widow? Okay. Prayers with you. Well, Ms. Jenkins, just do it again. You're trying to give a first-time home buyer. Someone's telling me to tell you you could build a new one from the ground, less than that. But you doing what God has placed in your heart to do. So we're asking the council all to help her do that for our first-time home buyer. I shouldn't go back to something, but Mr. Evans, you responded to Mr. Lawson when I asked him to be able to check from the CRA, but you said it's 2 things that you're going to do for the West Side. 2 entities, 2 things. And we've been waiting about 35 years something to come to the West Side to do 2 things. 2. 1, 2, turn 2. No. We need more than that. We need the whole city. I have to get this to Ms. Graham. But the whole thing up there, show it all. Because if You should on the west side. You're not gonna get that pleasure marketing thing for the state of
We
the
need to
city.
stay to the topic of this house, if you please.
Yes. I'm talking about the houses, because it's gonna still be on the west side. That's on the west side. That's one thing they're doing that's one of your two things for the west side, the house there? Is that one of them?
Just keep your time.
That's on the west side. We talking about the houses. This the project that's on the west side. So can I talk about that?
Yes.
So is that one of the two items you say you have for the
Mr.
west side
Evans-
y'all got?
Mr. Evans will respond when you're done. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna address the question to him so he can respond afterwards, okay? So is that one of the two? You answer me that. I think I'll stay here till you get to the end. But I think there's a lot of lots here. You can do more than that for the west side, to be for the, what you call it, the CD or whatever. It's a lot of houses they do, a lot of land and stuff here. But you're bringing these investors in that are buying it up. I think the last time someone brought up, I said it was 67% rentals, that all homes and stuff like that has been converted into rental property, that family members and grandmothers and struggled hard and paid for on the west side. And I'm telling you, the west side gonna have to just wake up and try to get more demand, more things. I don't like to demand nobody or force nobody to do something, but we gotta just wake up and do a little more on the west side. It just bothered me about that. They told me they couldn't do nothing for me on the west side. That bothers me. And the things I've been looking about is not like what they've been saying about giving this to that in the county. It's a little more to that. Watch, I'm gonna bring it to here. I had a federal U.S. judge call me.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Lawson?
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Jenkins, the CDC is allowed to operate outside of the CRA, so anywhere in Riviera Beach, we could possibly do this project, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
we can operate anywhere within the city.
So with all the projects and any of the land or the revitalization of any of these properties, it can be anywhere in Riviera Beach?
Yes, sir.
All right, so just a few quick questions. What contractors are used and how were they selected?
For this particular house, our primary intent would be to work with the reentry program. We'd like to do that. We will issue a request for bids. We'd have them submit a proposal because we want to make sure that we are being financially prudent, and we'd move ahead. The CDC has along with the CRA, we went through a process, if you all may recall, where we had a contractors outreach, and we have a list of vetted and approved contractors that we give bids, share bids with, but it would be a public process.
Okay. So was that a public process for the one that's being done on First Street now?
I'm sorry, sir.
The project, you guys, the CDC is working on a project now
Yes.
currently. And was that a public process for
Yes,
the
it
selection?
was.
Okay. Are these contractors providing training and certification for these individuals that's coming from the what is it, the reentry program that Brother Ori's doing?
Yes, there is a general contractor who's overseeing the construction, who signs the permits, who submits the pay apps, who is doing training with the reentry program. And we'd invite you, all of you, to come out and see the program in action. As Mr. Bullard said earlier, there's a classroom portion for the returning citizens, as I like to refer to them, and on site they're learning various skills. There are some skilled subcontractors who are on the job from time to time to provide finished elements of the construction, because we are delivering a quality product. There are several of the reentry members that I've observed before they started on this particular house, and just seeing the evolution and development of their skills is remarkable. So they're doing things, assisting with putting up form boards for the concrete walkway. They're painting, they're helping to put up drywall and finishing and sanding the drywall. They're helping with baseboards. They're learning how to lay tile. They're learning how to do basic carpentry. They're looking over the shoulder of the electrician who rewired the house. And on this particular house on First Street, it's a former rental property that the CDC acquired a year or so ago. And we went out to the market for bids to rehab it so that we could sell it to a first-time home buyer. Those bids were so high, and because appraisals were lower than what it would cost us, we couldn't afford to move forward with that house. So working with the reentry program is a perfect marriage of creating a laboratory in the community, taking a dilapidated property, returning it to the tax rolls, making it available for a first-time buyer, and having something beautiful in the neighborhood. You should see the neighbors and the passers-by who stop to go inside the house to look at it. We have a fence that's up now that has the stain on it that is very, very unique. So I would invite you to go by there. We have promised the neighbors in that particular area that when we finish that house, and I've talked with Mr. Evans about it, we want to go and do landscaping and painting for those who need it, get some of the neighbors to come out and volunteer, and we want to create a model block. And I also didn't mention that next to that house that's under construction, the CDC acquired a vacant lot. So we're also talking with the city about our next project, building a brand new house there. So we have 2 homes in that 900 block of West First Street.
And follow-up question, Madam Chair. Yes. The selection of the first-time home buyers, what steps do you take for selecting who actually gets these homes?
If you've attended some of our classes, you know that for each session, and we just had our kickoff this past Thursday, there are anywhere from 35 to 40 people who go through each session. And I mentioned earlier that we always do affirmative marketing, and that means that we look at first come, first ready. Not necessarily first come, first serve. You have to be first and ready. A few months ago, the CDC had a bus tour, and I know some of your aides were able to join us. It was a rainy day, but we put our potential buyers on the bus, and we showed them all of the potential opportunities for homes that we either had under our control or that we were working in partnership with. And we drove them around, and they had sales packets with potential sales prices, descriptions of the homes. And they were asked, if you're interested in a particular house, sign a letter of intent to let us know that you want the house on First Street or the house on Avenue J or wherever it might be. And what we told them is if we had multiple people interested in a particular property, we then do a lottery for that house. The buyers must go through the counseling program. They have to qualify. All of these buyers acquire a mortgage of some size, and we have to be able to put a deal together with the appropriate subsidy so that it is a financially viable deal. So it's sort of complicated, but it works, and people have an opportunity. And for the public who's listening, I don't have a contract on that house. I have people who are interested, but I don't currently have a contract. We hope that by the time we invite you out for our ribbon cutting and open house, we're going to have a grand affair that it will be under contract. But I guarantee you, once people see it, we're not going to have any problems selling it to one of the members in the club. And incidentally, it's the Riviera Beach Homebuyers Club. We have a number of city employees, first responders, residents There are a couple of people in this building who are in the club. Homes we've completed, we sold to Riviera Beach residents, number of them who were employees. We have 4 or 5 homes. We didn't build them, but we put deals together for Riviera Beach residents who are buying homes in the city.
So, Ms. Jenkins, just to let you know, I'm very much in support of this program. I love the process that you're creating. You're actually getting these properties back on the tax roll and creating home ownership with this community. So as quickly as you can turn these over, we want to be able to get as many of these properties back over to you. The city owns a lot of these single dilapidated properties that we need to get renovated. So if we can get them revitalized and sell them to the right people in the community at the right price and make it affordable, this is actually what we can do. And City Manager, I also want us to really start looking at larger tracts of land and really going after some of the real estate that's out there and putting together bigger parcels. Because these one-offs are great where we can get these back on the payroll. But as we spoke about in our agenda review, I really want us to kind of develop it at a bigger rate, at a larger rate, and provide address the concern that we have with the housing crisis, address some of the concerns that we have with some of the dilapidated property, and really revitalize our community.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh,
Ms.
yeah,
Lanier?
I just wanted to say I definitely support this project, and also to look at other infield properties around the city that we can acquire to be able to do something like this. Now, what about housing for returning citizens? Is that too controversial in terms of looking at grant subsidy, grant supports for people who are returning citizens who qualify?
Definitely not. And wouldn't that be the most perfect thing for this partnership, is that one of our returning citizens then moves into one of the homes. So that is the ultimate goal, and we're looking forward to it. We have a homeless crisis, so creating some quality housing for people who are house challenged is also a goal. That's the beauty of having a CDC working in partnership with the city. So most definitely, we're open to that. And let me clarify something. Ori mentioned guys, and I want you all to know that in this group of returning citizens who've been learning beautiful skills and learning how to report to work and who are doing great work on the house, there is a woman who works harder than all of them. So Lily, this is a shout out to you.
And I've seen her in action. She's good.
And one more question I wanted to ask, in terms of, I know that there's a home buyers club and it's a lot about home ownership, but have you ever had any discussions about lease to own, about people who are not in that position right this minute, but
Yes.
are going in that direction?
Yes, ma'am. If you will recall, in the budget presentation from the CRA, when I presented the housing portion, we set aside some money to do 2 to 3 lease-to-own homes. So some of the houses that we hopefully would do in partnership under this program could be lease-to-own, where we can get people back on their feet and eventually into full homeownership, most definitely.
Anyone else? Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple questions. Ms. Wynn or Mr. Evans, do you know how we acquired this property? Was it through a foreclosure or conveying by the property owner?
It was a tax deed.
Yeah, if I would have to defer to Ms. Jenkins, but I think it probably was a tax deed.
Yes, it was a tax deed.
Do you know approximately when?
In 2007, 2008, the city acquired it, and the construction started back then, and we went through a deep, deep recession, and it was just sort of sitting there, and that's why it was never completed.
So I guess this is a question for legal. So whatever surplus, is it possible that we can recoup this? Like, obviously we took the property, right? So if there was any other fees or anything that's outstanding, can we recoup that? Because I know a similar situation came up just recently when we had a property and we were going to give it away, but then the new buyer had to then come up with the lot clearing fees because that was a true cost that the city had incurred, and that was something that we couldn't waive. But I just, I know we got it from a tax deed sale, and I know certainly it's well-intentioned, and I like the program, but if at all, we can recover the cost that was associated with the lot clearing fees, because if it's been sitting there for 12 years, I certainly appreciate what it is that the CDC is doing, but I don't think, at least we should be able to cover back the cost that we spend our taxpayer dollars for to send people out to maintain and even board and secure those properties. So that would be my concern, and any true costs like litigation costs.
We can bring that back as part of the follow-up, because this is basically to see if the board had the appetite to move forward in such a direction, so we can bring those numbers, and then that would give legal and administration an opportunity to research what those hard costs were. And then, the board can take the policy direction to say, yes, we'd like to recoup this, or no, we don't want to do this because we are concerned about the affordability element associated with it. But we'll do some more research and bring that back.
Anything else? I certainly support this. I thank you so much, Ms. Jenkins, for bringing this to us. Every year, the county sweeps, the state rather, sweeps out the Sadowski Fund, and we are left with nothing for workforce housing, affordable housing. And in fact, Mac Bernard now is suggesting that we have a $150 million bond, which would go 50 to workforce, 50 to affordable, and 50 to homeless. So I think this is something that's clearly on our minds as something that we can do as a community to help citizens who are in need of housing. I support it completely. Would the city manager like us to suggest that we recommend to staff to pursue this, to effectuate this transfer? Is this something you'd like a motion on?
Yes, and one of the things, as a point of clarity, the resolution that was adopted that creates the opportunity for the city to transfer property interest to nonprofit entities has a 60-day waiting period. So the board would, in order for us to move quicker, the board would have to waive that 60-day language to allow for us to move through the process, or basically the clock starts from today for 60 days to allow for anyone to express any interest in the property. So if the board wants to see that or truncate that to 30 days, we can certainly do that, but it is the pleasure of the board. That's one of the mechanisms that has to be discussed or addressed for us to move in that direction.
So if we can have a motion that we direct the city manager to work with the CDC to effectuate this request and to conduct any other associated investigations they have to do to make this happen, and to waive the 60-day waiting period.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Councilperson Lawson.
Madam Chair, I think I heard Miller Anderson trying to get
sorry.
your attention.
Ms. Miller Anderson?
Shoot, I think she was trying to second it.
Oh, I think she was trying to say, thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Anderson.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Chair
Okay.
Botel.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. Good job, Leah. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, just at the end of the presentation, the CDC has done their homework and has provided us a list of properties to really move forward on that. And I think that's probably more suitable for a Saturday workshop, because I know the Housing Authority also has some interest on some of those parcels. So there may be some opportunities to work with these two entities to effectively get some substantial progress on the board's initiative to address workforce housing in our community.
So, discussion by city man, oh, no, I think there was another question that you might not have answered. It had to do with something about the west side. Are we, just?
The comments that was made with regards to the west side, and I really hope that everyone attends the State of the City address, because we're starting to look at our community holistically and look at it as the city of Riviera Beach, that from corner to corner, ocean to, as far as our municipal boundaries touch, is that we're going to address issues holistically and as a community. But we are working on projects that we hope to have further discussions with the board. That's going to give us a significant presence in our community in a certain particular area. I don't want to be very specific because we're still working on some of the nuances. Probably in the next 2 weeks, we'll be briefing the board on some ideas that staff has come up with, but it is a substantial move to be able to address some of the challenges we've had with regards to our facilities in the city. So we will be having briefing conversations with the board. We're just trying to obtain all the information necessary so it can be a thorough conversation. But certainly, we know that from a recreation footprint and from a community footprint, we need to start looking at recreational spaces, community spaces, north of where they traditionally are, north and west, to try to be more inclusive and provide for recreational amenities. So that's something that we're looking at, and Director Blankenship is moving with a Parks Master Plan, and that will look at our existing parks inventory and how we need to look at things holistically as a community and improvements that we can make. So we're working on that same vein, but there's some additional information, and it's too premature to provide it in a public setting, but certainly once we get to a good point where we have good information where the board can make a policy decision, staff will bring that forward for you to consider, but we will be briefing you probably in the next couple weeks individually.
Thank you. Was that the extent of the discussion by city manager?
A couple of quick things. Certainly excited to have Chief Osgood on board. If you can be in attendance, we have his swearing-in ceremony, and we will be putting out information to the community, inviting them to participate in the ceremonial swearing-in. Chief Osgood and his family will be in attendance, and the law enforcement team is excited about this particular process and really forging forward with a new day in law enforcement here in the city of Riviera Beach. So we're excited about that. Also, I would like to also tell the board that we were successful in securing the services of Miss Althea Pimsel, who is going to be the procurement director. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience. One of the things that was very impressive and exciting for us is she is a member of the Design Build Institute for Water and Wastewater. So that is a great thing for us, having the understanding and experience with regards to the procurement processes when you talk about major infrastructure such as that. Has served in various capacities in procurement, from I think a buyer all the way up to the rank of assistant director in agencies that are larger than ours. Has a graduate degree and a wealth of knowledge and experience, and she will be coming on towards the end of the month of March. So we're excited to have her on board and thank Mr. Little for serving in that capacity. We also will be making a final selection for the Development Services Director position by end of week this week, and then I will provide additional information to the board. So a lot of the staff level positions as it relates to executive team members are starting to come on board, and we're hoping to finalize some of the existing job descriptions to put that out by the end of the week. So certainly encourage people to look out for information on the Community Value Survey, as well as the State of the City, and we will also be putting out information for the city's Leadership Academy. So excited about some things that we have on the horizon, as well as our youth council. The elected officials all received these nice cards, and these are personal invitations from the elected officials because we want their assistance in filling up the room at the auditorium at Suncoast. So each of them have 10, so we're going to see if all our council members can get at least 10 people to attend the State of the City address. We've got a really good program in place, and I think the community is really going to be excited about what the city is getting ready to embark upon, and the success that this board has made just in the short term that you all have been in office. So we're looking forward to that event and looking forward to the community participating. And that concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Comments from City Attorney?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Comments from committee reports. I attended the Economic Development Committee of the Palm Beach North Chamber, as well as the Government Affairs Committee of the Palm Beach North Chamber. And I wanted to report about one interesting thing that we had an opportunity to experience at the Economic Development Committee, and that is that we had a gentleman there, Justin Dennis, who's the co-founder of a group called Urban SDK, and they're working on a piece of software. You know, we have this Smart and Connected Communities project that we've been working on as a consortium of the 10 cities that are in the Palm Beach North Chamber. And this gentleman's software will allow us to go even deeper into sharing data amongst cities. One of the projects that he talked about having effectuated in the Jacksonville area is, for example, homeless people up there can go to a kiosk and get a ride to a hospital when they need it. No matter where they are, they can get a ride to a hospital within 5 or 10 minutes because they use this software to connect all of the different municipalities in that area. So I think it's very exciting that we have this at our disposal, or will soon, and that's something that the Chamber is going to be paying for. That's all I have to say about that. And then statements by Mayor and City Council, starting with the Mayor.
Yes, just a couple things. First, I want to make an announcement that I will be appointing a new member to the Riviera Beach Housing Authority Board to fill a vacancy created by the expiration of Commissioner Dalvin Thomas's term. You can reach my office for application, get with my Chief of Staff, Jatessa Brown. And also, Mr. Evans, it did come up tonight about the Old Avenue, and I know it was passed a month ago, but they're not doing work on M Avenue. I think they're supposed to leave M Avenue and go to O Avenue, and for the past couple of weeks, I've seen nothing on M Avenue, so if we can have that checked out.
I'll certainly check on that tomorrow and update you, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of the council.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to thank Principal Granger and Mary McLeod Bethune. We had a Student Appreciation Day over at Mary McLeod where the entire police force and fire department came out, and the kids had a phenomenal time. If you guys haven't seen it, it's on social media. It's City of Riviera Beach Facebook page has already put out a video from there. And those kids, just seeing the police officers, the firefighters, seeing Chloe, the dog, they had a phenomenal time. We need to continue to give that exposure to these kids, to show them and to have them working with the officers in blue and with our fire department and actually, you know, really encourage them. They want to see people besides just their parents and these teachers. So if we can continue to go to these schools and mentor to the kids, that will help and bring down the crime in our community. That will help with these young people that are going to be citizens, voting citizens in the next 10 years to actually being engaged and staying in the community. So I want us to really reach out to do that and continue to do that. Ms. Jenkins, again, I want to congratulate you on that project. I'm really excited for what the CDC is going to do, and we just keep pushing it as well. So, colleagues, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Ms. Lanier.
I also attended a meeting with the Transportation Planning Authority. The last meeting that I went to, which was a couple of Thursdays ago, was just a huge meeting on the whole State Road 7 expansion, and so that meeting was totally taken up by that particular issue. Secondly, I wanted to thank Ms. Noel for her presentation. I also wanted to say that Mr. Manager has spoiled me with these Saturday workshops, because a lot of these issues, especially something like this has been a controversial issue from the beginning with these community benefits. And I wanted to give it enough time to be able to flesh it out, because you had a lot of very good information, but it was a lot of stuff to discuss. And you see that the agenda looked very small tonight, but we are still here, and it's almost 10 o'clock. So I wanted to be able to have the time to be able to go through this issue and to be able to have the input that we have the time to be able to do. So no offense to you. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that it was good information, but we just did not have the time to be able to flesh it out like we really, really need to, and also have public feedback with it as well. And also, again, just thank the residents and for coming out. I appreciate the fact that they come to the mic and they let us have it, and I can appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that people who are looking on television, that they always have something to say about how we do business here, and that's a good thing. so that, you know, we can be able to say that if we're going to serve the citizens of the city of Riviera Beach, then if we don't, then you're gonna let us know, and we need to change our ways, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Evans, so the two items, I think you said Housing Authority and also CDC has some houses. Did they both identify the same properties or the same concept?
Same kind of concept. Same kind of concept. So we want to have a joint meeting and then, you know, see where there's lapse or there's consistency on both lists, or there's properties that have been, because the board may decide to set, you know, policies that says, you know, tranche A goes to the CDC and B goes to the Housing Authority with some intentions, but I'd have to reconcile. There may be some similarities on the list, but there may be some difference. But we do want to have that Saturday workshop to talk about housing in its entirety.
Okay, and I certainly want to bring back the community benefits. Was it staff's desire to have something done before the expiration of the current, I guess, the end of the month?
We can bring that back as part of one of your Saturday workshops, because we'll probably start those again in April. The intention is to get some direction from the board as to how we want to move forward, because I think there's 578 days left on the contract. Not that I'm counting, but
you're counting.
But we do want to have some clarity as to providing some type of process that hopefully alleviates, you know, the items on your desk.
Thanks. Last item. We're already in March, and I think I sent something earlier. Has there been any dissemination about the closure of wells for the early voting?
We have had we've had conversations about early voting, and we've even, to make sure from a public safety standpoint, obviously that has been communicated that that's really under the purview of the county. The city clerk's office also told us that the area where people are able to stand outside of a voting location has now increased from 100 to 150 feet. But we have been working with our county partners concerning that and being prepared for anything that we can do. The other side of it is we would have to work with the SO, because they would be an entity that would be present in the event that there was anything. And the other side of it is, if we did have a police presence there, we would probably do with ununiformed personnel, because we don't want to intimidate or create a situation where people feel concerned about that, you know, that part of our democracy. But we will make sure that folks are safe going in and out of the precincts as best as we possibly can. But we're prepared from the staff side.
So from operational standpoint, from Parks and Rec, like the normal functions of whatever would be occurring there, has that been addressed is my question.
I believe that the programs have been, because they've been working with staff, I believe those programs have been resolved, and that those are not getting conflict with the early voting location.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Ms. Jenkins again for letting us know how successfully that project is going. I'm so happy that Ori Bullard was here this evening, because I've been meaning to get a hold of him, because that hard-to-hire group hasn't met in a while, and I'm determined to get it back going so that we can really address the needs of our returning citizens. So thank you for involving them. Could you tell me once more the address of that house so people will know to go by there and check it out? 950 West First Street. Okay, I'm going to come over there and take a look.
Madam Chair. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I'm happy to say that we will be in the very, very near future finalizing, actually putting in process the pre-apprenticeship program for the marine industry that we were able to obtain through CareerSource. We've been working very closely with CareerSource to get jobs for people in the community. They've been very active in my workforce development task force, and I'm so happy that's happened. We've also got a $3 million grant in front of the Department of Economic Opportunity that will bring more CareerSource training right here to Riviera Beach by refurbishing what's now the Judge Rogers Center, so they'll be able to give courses right there in the marine industry. So I'm happy to see that the work of the Workforce Development Task Force is moving along nicely, and that's all I have for tonight.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just Ms. Jenkins, proud of you. Keep it up. My chief of staff, she is so excited. She's about ready to get our house, and I give kudos to you for walking her through the process.
At this nothing else, we stand adjourned.
Did you ask?